Hello mech fans and welcome to the Valhalla Club. Grab yourself a Timbeaky Dark, set up that paint booth, open that spreadsheet, and join us as we talk all things BattleTech. Alright everybody, thanks for joining us today in the Valhalla Club. This is going to be Season 2, Episode 8. Today's topic is going to be MechWarrior 5 clans and MechWarrior Online. We've been doing some game nights for, since November, Brent?
Yeah.
Since it was the Extra Life stream where we streamed to raise money for the Children's Hospital.
Oh yeah, the Wolfnet deal. Yeah.
Yeah, we streamed MechWarrior Online for, how long did I play that day? It was like 17 hours. It was a long time. So we've been building up a nice big MechWarrior Online game night. We're just big video game nerds, so we wanted to talk about it a little bit more. But I'll be your bartender for the night, Mike. I've got with me Dave. Matt might be joining us a little later. He got caught up in some work. But special guest for the night, being on the topic of MechWarrior 5 clans and MechWarrior Online, we've got PGI CEO Russ with us here. And also, who's a regular on the game night, we've got Brent from Mechs and Men. So thanks for joining us today, fellas.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. It's taken us a couple months to get this arranged, but yeah, it's cool to meet another group of guys, some smaller, podcast community, because that's really what really kind of makes MechWarrior, right? I mean, our history is, starting out doing a lot of work with just this community that's out there. And it sounds like you guys have done a really good job of sort of coalescing a lot of individual communities into one, and that's really cool.
All right, so we'll get rolling straight into guest introductions. I guess, Russ, we'll start with you. So just real quick, for those that may not know, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, I'm Russ Bullock. I'm the CEO of Piranha Games. Piranha Games is a game developer in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. We formed in the year 2000, and we've got a long history there, and about more than half of it now is MechWarrior related, believe it or not. About the first 11 years was more work for hire type projects. We worked with anyone from Activision to EA and worked on things like Need for Speed and just all sorts of games and franchises out there, just, making games and building our studio. And like all independent studios, you one day dream of working on your own products. And, well, I'm sure we'll get into this, my history with, MechWarrior and BattleTech, but let's just say sort of a dream came true back in about 2011 when we got involved with the MechWarrior IP and got the license. And, yeah, the last, 13 years have been full-time, MechWarrior development. So that takes us up to present day and, working on our latest game, MechWarrior 5 Clans. Excited to talk about all of it tonight.
Awesome. So yeah, like you mentioned, getting into that background real quick, next question on the docket is, how'd you get into BattleTech? My assumption, right, being the big boss for a game company, that means you're also a bit of a nerd. And sounds like you might be a bit of a BattleTech nerd yourself.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys that sort of trapped between, didn't know when they were growing up whether they were like a nerd or a jock, because I had one group. I was involved in most of the sports, and all my friends in the sports scene had no interest in video games and things like pen and paper tabletop games. But I had this kind of like secret life on the side where I loved all that stuff and loved computer games, loved anything to do with computers, and and I have to, a lot of people have heard this story before on other podcasts over all the years that I've done, but you guys have maybe a unique audience. So if someone hasn't heard this story before, I think it's always worth telling. And the credit really goes to my brother Chris. So I have an older brother; he's 2 years older than me. So I'm 48 years old. Be 49 this September. So that puts me. I was born in 75, and so BattleTech, the original box set, is 85 if I'm not mistaken. So right in that wheelhouse, right? And so my brother Chris was 2 years older than me. So he was the one that was a massive pen and paper like nerd. I mean, he had so many games. I have to credit him to introduce me to what became my passions were the FOSSA properties in particular Shadowrun and BattleTech. I just absolutely adored both of those. And he got me introduced to the BattleTech pen and paper game. I remember playing the original box set with him a ton. All those awesome original line art, like the Warhammer, of course, was my favorite. Like everyone, it was so awesome. Loved playing that. And so that was credit to him. I don't think we got in it so early that it was called Battle Droid still. It was called BattleTech. So maybe it was within a couple years of its original iteration. But being more of a computer kind of techie guy, I remember the family got our original home PC, like an IBM clone, must have been back around, let's say 87, 88, somewhere in there. 8086 processor with a turbo button that got it up to 8 megahertz. And at 8 megahertz, and it had a hard drive, which was badass because we didn't have to boot off of floppies. We had a 30 megabyte hard drive. And first game I got there was BattleTech: The Crescent Hawk's Inception. And that was just awesome. 4-color CGA graphics. I played that to death. My brother he'd play them, but he would lose interest. He was about pen and paper. He loved it. He had the imagination for it or whatever. And so my childhood is essentially Stranger Things. You know the show. Like that's me as a kid, like riding on bikes down to my cousin Blake's house, going to his basement to play D&D. So that's exactly kind of my time frame. But yeah, I naturally gravitated towards the computer game side of things. I played the Crescent Hawk's Inception to death. Just loved that little. I don't know if you guys have played that one, but like had a little Solaris arena even in it where you could stomp around and fight. So cool. And then of course, Crescent Hawk's Revenge. Now, someone might correct me. I'd have to Google this. Crescent Hawk's Revenge come out before original MechWarrior? I believe it did, right? Maybe? Not sure. So it's close. But the story takes a turn when... So 1989's MechWarrior 1, right? Back in those days, like maybe you pulled up a magazine at the supermarket and you're flipping through it. And I remember going, whoa! You'd like... All of a sudden you'd see like Crescent Hawk's Revenge, like, oh my god, like they're making another one. And it was just so hard to get information. You didn't really know when and where, how to get it. And in fact, with MechWarrior 1, I had no idea. I remember going into the local video game store in the mall in Lethbridge, Alberta, this little city back then of maybe 50, 60,000 people. Had the one mall that was worth a damn and like a little store that sold the video games and stuff. And I remember walking in and just like right there on the shelf, there it was, MechWarrior 1. With like the Warhammer in the front cover. And I was just like, holy shit, where did this come from? And I just had to have it. I was like, we have to get this. We're getting it. I just sat there and just ground my mom to a pulp until she finally bought it. But so now I owned it and I was like so excited. And of course, I read on the back, this game required EGA 16 color graphics. And we still had that 4-color CGA monitor. So I couldn't play it. And, I think I remember sneaking over to one dude's house at the high school who had the EGA graphics card. And I think you also needed EGA for Crescent Hawk's Revenge, if I remember correctly. So I went through a period there. It was really difficult to get my family to upgrade the PC. So I couldn't really play those games. But then eventually, I think, I grew up on a farm in Alberta. I may have skipped that part. So I worked and had my own money and I got an EGA monitor and finally got playing those games. So they were both awesome. MechWarrior 1 really just like became a cornerstone of my life. I mean, MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries is basically a spiritual successor to MechWarrior 1. I mean, in a lot of ways, of course, it's like MechWarrior 2 Mercs, MechWarrior 4 Mercs, but more than any of them, MechWarrior 1. And the reason is, well, you can look at the story arc. Ad's killed revenge cycle is essentially, mimics MechWarrior 1. Also, MechWarrior 1 was special to me because it had the most freedom of any of the Mercenaries games. I mean, you could actually go to the planet of the Inner Sphere, look around the planets and choose which planet you wanted to fly to and spend the money to get there. So if people don't really realize that, but they had that in MechWarrior 1. And it wasn't until MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries where you could do that again. Like Mech 4 had like minor choice on the planets, right? But not like full-blown freedom. So MechWarrior 5 Mercs, I think some people, and we'll come around to this when we talk about clans, maybe envision something a little more storytelling. But for me, the vision was always, like, we achieved the vision that we set out to make. Like, the vision for me was, this is a mercenaries game. This is like, I want the player to have the most freedom of their unit and where they go and what they do and what contracts they take than of any, MechWarrior game today, and be like the ultimate sandbox simulation of a MechWarrior mercenaries experience. So in the end, I think we nailed that. I just think some people were really longing for a next storytelling game. But anyhow, I digress and get off track. But that's how my MechWarrior journey started. So I think we should go a little further, though. Obviously, after MechWarrior 1 was so epic, we were waiting for MechWarrior 2 forever, right? It was just like forever. Nowadays, games take 6 years all the time, but back then, that may as well have been like forever, because games did not take as long back then, most times within a year. So to have to wait that long was huge. And so I think by then we had a 486 in the house. Didn't have the good math coprocessor, though. I think it was like an SX33 or something like that, 33 megahertz. It was all right. So MechWarrior 2 finally comes out, and just like everyone else, of course, I was totally hooked on that. Played it to death. The music was unbelievable. That was right. I like the thing I always tell people in my business meetings now, like when I'm talking about MechWarrior 5 clans and stuff, is that back then MechWarrior 2 was the biggest game in the world at the time, right? I mean, not just in the PC world, like console hadn't taken off yet. It was the biggest game in the world. I mean, it doubled the size of Activision at the time for a PC game, and it basically felt like it came in every box of cereal, right? It was like everywhere, like every graphics card, like everything shipped with this thing. And that's how a lot of people got their first, 3D accelerator, right? Like I went through a couple of those crap 3D accelerators. They weren't as good. I forget the names of them. S3. I don't know who had them. Anyhow, there's these other ones. And I finally got a proper, like, Voodoo graphics 4 gigabyte. And that thing was awesome, right? I mean, Quake and stuff on that was incredible. But yeah, MechWarrior 2 was unbelievable. And of course I had all the the expansion packs and everything. And so, we'll get to that eventually, but so if MechWarrior 1 was if Mercs is a spiritual successor to MechWarrior 1, and obviously MechWarrior 5 Clans is the spiritual successor to MechWarrior 2. I mean, believe it or not, the biggest game in the world at the time, it's by far the biggest MechWarrior game ever, right? MechWarrior 2. And you think we all would have been, mimicking that ever since then, right? To reestablish that kind of success. But believe it or not, I couldn't believe this. I was at GDC in March, pitching, giving the whole media spiel on clans. And it was only then that it really dawned on me to some degree. It's like, holy shit, it's been 29 years since MechWarrior 2. And this is the first time since 1995's MechWarrior 2 that you play from the clan's perspective in a linear storytelling campaign. It's actually kind of crazy. But anyhow, so that's how we got here. And of course, I played all the others, and they were good. I liked Mech 3 a lot. Radical zoom thing, first time on that. That was awesome. Love the sense. I think the sense of scale and perspective was really well done in Mech 3. Mech 4 was fun for sure. Definitely got more actiony. But that's the trend that games, are moving in. Used the fight stick with that one a lot. Yeah, so that took us pretty much right up to, we went to MechWarrior Online. So yeah, it's kind of crazy, It's like one of those crazy things you say, like the universe is, gonna give you what you wish for. And I feel like that's a true thing when when I got to get this brand and work on it for this many years. So it's really quite crazy. There you go. I hope that wasn't too long of an answer, but
you're good.
That's my history on BattleTech.
No, that's awesome. One of us, right?
Yeah.
That's what we want from our developers and the guy in charge.
Absolutely.
One of us. So that is dope. All right. So with that, what's your favorite faction and why?
I think like a lot of people, for a long time, it was Clan Wolf. There's just so many good novels, so many good storylines. They were just great. The noble class, really, of Clan Wolf. And then I think I went away in sort of a hipster mode where I was like, in the early MWO era, I was like, I'd be like the underdogs. I was always like house Lao, running like a mech that was like furthest from meta possible, So that was kind of my shtick. And I do have a soft spot for Lao, I think mostly because of what is it? Is it the Warrior trilogy when Kai Allard is what's how do you say his name? Kai.
Yep.
The guy with the Centurion that's modified to become Yen Lo Wang. I mean, just so that was a huge novel series for me. I love that. So that's why Yen Lo Wang was like the first hero mech in MWO, wasn't it? I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. I say the Brent and the of Mechs and Men guys, they're about to finish up the last book soon for the Warrior trilogy because they go book by book. So they're going through the Warrior trilogy right now, and it's just been a blast.
Yeah.
So I know you mentioned at least earlier on. Oh.
What? What's my favorite faction now?
Oh yeah.
I think this is my claim that I told Phil over at NGMD, and he didn't believe me at first. But then after GDC, he said, he kind of repeated what I said. I said, I don't know. I think after MechWarrior 5 Clans comes out, Clan Smoke Jaguar is going to be everyone's favorite clan. I mean, I know it's crazy because everyone's like, what? Well, how could it be? Well,
at least until they read the lore.
Based on the lore, they would think that's impossible. But what if you were Clan Smoke Jaguar? Like, what if you saw exactly how those events unfolded? Maybe they unfolded in a way that you once you see their perspective or the perspective of some of the mech warriors in the middle of that conflict, it might change your mind. So I think that's one of the things I'm most excited about MechWarrior 5 Clans. I know we'll get there, but just like I think I'm just super excited about the direction we chose because I think at first maybe it was maybe I should save this for the MechWarrior 5 Clans section, but yeah, I'll save it. But I guess that's the way my history's gone. It was a lot of Clan Wolf. It was things like House Lai. How do you say it? Lao?
I've always said Liao.
Yeah. I've always said Liao, but I've heard plenty of other people say Lao, yeah.
Yeah. I've had my Davian moments like everyone else. There's great novels with, Victor, Davian, and some of the stuff. So, Draconis Combined is so cool. So, I kind of bounced around a bit. I definitely, I don't know. If I had to pick one right now, it'd be tough. Maybe Smoke Jaguar. We'll see.
Fair enough. All right. So I know you mentioned earlier, at least in the early end, your favorite mech was the Warhammer. That was, the box art. And it's still a beautiful design. I think, the current art for it is even better. But there's been a lot of new mechs over the years. So what's your favorite mech?
Yeah, I'll start listing off some of my past favorites. Then I'll try to decide. The Warhammer is awesome. Always loved it. I also love the Rifleman. Because the Rifleman was front and center, I think, in the MechWarrior 1 cover art. I believe the player was in a Warhammer. You could see by the heads-up display written on the graphics, but he was lighting up a Rifleman, if I'm not mistaken. And the Rifleman just looked super cool. I just always liked that. So a lot of these classic ones, right, from the original tabletop group, I like them a lot. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for a dragon. Everyone that knows playing MWO, that was my first love in MWO. Dragon is a really sick mech.
That explains why it came out. It was like the third or it was like the fifth mech, I think, that was in game, if I recall.
Yeah, Hunchback up there too. But like, I always had a soft spot for like a large autocannon style mech. So things like a dragon carried an autocannon, but like a centurion again from that Warrior trilogy of the custom centurion battle mech, even like a Clint or a Hunchback. I just love these large sort of autocannon style mechs. Moving into the clan space,
I can understand the Davian love at some point.
Yeah.
Davian love.
I'm just surprised at the Clint.
Yeah.
I don't ever see anyone put a Clint on a table.
Yeah, probably don't. There's been so many over the years, but moving into clan space, I've just always loved the Summoner. Like, again, ever since that initial opening trailer to MechWarrior 2, and watching that Summoner stalk that guy, I just thought it was the sickest looking mech. I love the very asymmetrical sort of, look about it. So I've always played the Summoner and liked it a lot. Yeah, I love a lot of the classics, like the Jenner. What else? So if I had to pick a favorite today, if I'm gonna go, yeah, it's hard. It's really hard.
There's a lot of good ones.
Yeah, I like a medium mech a lot. Medium to heavy. Don't like to play a lot of lights. I don't like to play a lot of assaults either. And said normally if I had I like playing like 50, 55 tonners. I guess again it's classic, like the Grey Death Legion series, the original Shadowhawk. I still love. My oldest son, his name is Grayson. So
that's awesome.
And that's exactly why he's named that. That's my wife. That was a cool name, Grayson Death Carlisle. So
there's actually another podcast in here that also has a son named Grayson.
For the same reasons.
Yeah.
Shout out to you, son.
It's a cool name. Well, and I have a tattoo, one tattoo on my body, but it's not MechWarrior. It's FOSSA. It's a Shadowrun right here. The Shadowrun logo on my shoulder. So it shows you the FOSSA sort of love goes back to my childhood.
True gamer. Hell yeah. Well, I guess you kind of already answered this question, but I mean, do you play the tabletop game? I guess that's currently?
Yeah, it's mostly.
Well, you're kind of busy now.
Yeah, it's mostly a part of my past. It's not that I'm not interested, but yeah, I haven't in ages. Yeah, it's cool though. I like it. I think it's neat. I like what this kind of resurgence we're seeing with the tabletop setup and what Catalyst has done lately and everything. So no, I haven't played in a while though. I'd like to. It'd be fun.
The Kickstarter renaissance has been amazing. But yeah, I think I spend probably about 80-20, if not about 90% to 10%, 90% being video game side and 10% on the table. That's just also because, video games, you can get that itch in a lot shorter amount of time versus a game of Classic, which hope you got a whole day dedicated to it, which is harder with a busier life schedule. All right, well, the last one before we move on to Brent here would be, what's your favorite BattleTech game and why?
So we're excluding MechWarrior. We're talking BattleTech games. So like what, Crescent Hawk's Inception to the latest BattleTech? Is that what you mean?
I mean,
I think that's a totally loaded question, Mike.
Yeah, well, the MechWarrior games they're BattleTech games, right?
Yeah.
I view it as any of it.
Anything and everything?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's exclude our Piranha Games. I won't pick one of those, right? Let's go off the board, like as far as anything that was not developed by us. Okay. It's tough because nostalgia comes in there, right? This is what's frustrating. So here, like a little side note. So if you said, what's the best one, let's say, and again, we're excluding, say, the Piranha-made products. But you could correlate this example to our games versus other games as well, if you wanted. The best one, I mean, if I didn't say, Harebrained Schemes BattleTech, I'd probably be a nut job because even though my nostalgic factor is through the roof for the Crescent Hawk's Inception, Crescent Hawk's Revenge, that's rose-colored glasses thinking back to the past. BattleTech is simply a much better, more robust game. It's kind of like, it's like our games, MechWarrior 5 Mercs, let's say, compared to like Mech 2 Mercs, Mech 4 Mercs. Like, sure, MechWarrior, the impact that the product had in the marketplace at the time, MechWarrior 2 is significantly bigger and better, right? But now you can't really compare the products. Like even as much as I love Mech 2, I really can't go back and play it anymore. I've tried. It was unbelievable at the time, but things move and it doesn't hold up for me anymore. Like I can't go back there and play it for very long stretches of time. So that's why the question's tough for me. It's like, I could say Crescent Hawk's Inception, but that's really based on the impact it had on my life at the time. Not because I think right now it's the best one or my favorite. So I'm going to change your question. I'm going to say which one
Fair enough.
impacted me the most at the time. Oof. Probably the MechWarrior 1. MechWarrior 1, the original MechWarrior. That was life-changing. That was just like, oh my god, they were 3D. They did so much stuff in there that we made a point of doing in Mercs. Like I already talked about flying from planet to planet, but I think they actually, more so than any other game, had a repair system in the mech bay like we ended up with. Like no other one, like, oh, my medium laser's damaged and my heat sinks, and you'd go in there and actually repair these things. It was, I don't know, as I remember it, I thought they did an amazing job for 1989. Like, incredible. They were basically one of the first polygonal games. It was crazy what those guys did in that game. So, MechWarrior 1. There you go.
All right. Well,
I changed
Brent,
your question.
It's all good. It was a very broad question, so I get it. Also, Dave, he said it was a loaded question. What? That's how you know it's a good question, right?
Well, it's hard to ask the CEO of Piranha Games what's his favorite MechWarrior games. I would expect that, MWO or MechWarrior 5 or MechWarrior or Clans is going to be the answer, which I personally absolutely love those games, and they have stolen more of my time than I would really like to admit.
The Steam counter just keeps growing. Hours played.
It's at 2,500 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, really? On MWO?
2,000 on MWO and 500 into MechWarrior 5.
Cool. MechWarrior 5, Mercs. Yeah, it's one of the things I think most proud about it is just replayability. Especially including if someone has all the DLC packs. And I've always had mixed feelings on the fact that, we always felt compelled to give them a timeline start for when the DLC content starts. In some ways, I think that's. I
really appreciate that as a player.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I mean, being able to pick.
So, for example, let's look at Duncan, the new one, the Solaris one. I find that one of the biggest features of that DLC is the fact that it's not just a finite set of content around that timeline. Like, the notion of the arena battles is now just a generic aspect of the entire star map. But, it's part of the full sandbox metagame experience. But when you start at the timeline for Solaris, you start so close to the start of the DLC that you don't really get to experience that. You get right into the meat of the Solaris thing. Although I always felt like if someone had all the time in the world, let's say you had a friend who said, "Hey, I'm going to start MechWarrior 5 Mercs. What should I do?" What I would say is okay, first off, buy them all. Not because I'm trying to get their sales. I'm just saying if you had all of them, then I would start a brand new. Maybe not a career. I'd probably start a brand new campaign, the one with the original storyline. But now you're starting at 3015, and from the get-go, as you fly around the inner sphere, you're going to see all the stuff in the DLCs, right? Like all the rival merc companies, the Solaris arenas, because as you guys know, if you've played it since the beginning, the game is not the same game that released in 2019 off Epic Game Store. I don't even just mean because there's the DLC campaigns. I mean, just the stuff added to the base game. It's 5 times deeper and richer. And I just think you should experience that from 3015 rather than jump into 3038 and just jumping straight into the stuff. So anyhow, I love that people can play that a lot. There was a guy on YouTube. I just bumped into his videos recently. He has a pretty high subscriber count too, 1 million subs or something. And he was talking about his addiction to Mercs. I put 300 hours into Mercs that year and stuff, and I was like, that's cool. You can play it that long. That's awesome.
No, I really like the replayability of it. I typically, whenever a new DLC comes out, I just start a brand new game with the new DLC, and I just go for it because I want to try and beat it with what you guys decided was this is what you'll start with for this DLC. And I tried, and I do my best, but god damn it, why is Rosselhog so hard?
Is it hard? Okay.
Well, apparently I either suck at the game or it's just hard because I have not been able to beat Rosselhog.
Good scrub.
Oh man, I was about to say that's the one I think I have the easiest time with.
Well, then I'm just terrible.
Yeah. The procedure generation system can be punishing for sure. I remember balancing the original game, and when you get to the 95 plus difficulty missions, it's hard. Sometimes they're fine, sometimes they're almost impossible feeling, and that's just kind of the nature of the beast of that proc system that, we did our best, but there are certain combinations that it might come up with that are just devastating. But that's good. I mean, that was
bad
cool.
Habit of just going and face hugging the enemy with short range weapons. I mean, that could probably be part of my problem.
Yeah, that probably doesn't help.
I mean, maybe.
Okay, great questions there.
All right. Well, Brent, we've had Kanan on before, but this is the first time you've joined us. So we'll run through some introduction questions for you. I guess this is where we give you another chance to pitch your show, even though I think you guys are the biggest BattleTech Podcast at the moment. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm Brent, in case you didn't know, and I do a lot of things. Obviously, the most relevant to this being that I am one of the hosts of Mechs and Men, which is a BattleTech book club podcast. Check us out. Yeah, I mean, I wear a lot of other hats, but that's the one I think that's most relevant here. I'll try and be brief, just because I feel like Russ is the. I'm excited to hear what he's got to say.
Okay, we'll just run through the list real quick. You've already kind of planned them out. So how'd you get into BattleTech?
Well, a sweet combo of MechWarrior 2, of course, and the animated series, which I feel like is unusual. I did not know they were related at the time, though, because I was very young, and I was playing MechWarrior 5 when I was 5. I caught the animated series on the original run, and I kind of wondered if little kid me wondered if the the Mad Cats and stuff were stolen from that video game. I was confused. Longer than I should have been, anyway.
All right. What's your favorite faction?
Clan Nova Cats, and with an honorable mention to the Free Rosselhog Republic for trying their best against the clans.
And they tried.
I also, like Russ, started out with Clan Wolf, though that was my pick in MechWarrior 2. And another honorable mention to Sea Fox and the Northwind Hunters, the Merc Company.
All right. What's your favorite mech?
The Marauder 2C. This one's probably obvious to people on the Valhalla Club Discord, because my handle was Mad Eye Marauder 2C for the longest time. That was the mech that I fell in love with in MechWarrior 2, and it's what the first mech I played on the tabletop as well. And yeah, it's a little cheesy, but there's something about it, especially the new redesign, that just still to this day speaks to me. A follow-up, the Nova Cat, Nova Huntsman, Grasshopper, and Shadowcat as well.
No scale shot?
The Viper's a cool mech.
No
I take it
Pirates
a lot in
Bane?
Alpha Strike.
Yeah. All right. And then to round it out, what's your favorite BattleTech game?
So, MechWarrior 2, I'm going to take it the same way kind of Russ took this question, which is, I would say MechWarrior 2 is the most impactful. It's the reason I'm into BattleTech, right? Like, you can trace a direct line to the first time I booted up I put that CD-ROM in that Gateway 2000, and my little mind was blown. My music, everything, like, I feel like has been influenced that game. Like, I still love that, like, electronic tribal drum style music that I first heard in MechWarrior 2. But I also played a lot of Mech 4. I skipped 3. I've actually recently gone back and played through it, and I found it. I will say I found it a little clumsy. But I think it's because I'm coming at it from this angle as opposed to playing it when it came out. Also, I've been a founder in MechWarrior Online since the get-go, and I've played quite a bit of MechWarrior Online, and we still do a lot of fun with that. And I also, since Russ is here, wanted to say I really enjoyed the Dragon's Gambit expansion you guys did with MechWarrior 5 Mercs. Probably my favorite one out of all of them. Not even that big of a Karita fan. I just thought I really liked a lot of the map layouts you guys did on that.
All right, so that should round out our guest introductions, which will then move us on over to the main medal, where we get to pick Russ's brain apart as much as he'll let us. So we'll start it off with MechWarrior Online, because, like I mentioned, we've been having Friday night game nights, or Saturday nights, or both. We started it back when Charles from WolfNet gave me the idea to stream it for the Extra Life charity campaign. And then it kind of just stuck with. Gotten a bunch of people back into the game that have been out for a while. I started MechWarrior Online back in, I want to say it was early 2013, maybe late 2012. Played it for a bit, and that was just like, I've been in loved the universe forever and was missing playing the MechWarrior video game, so I just Googled it, and it was just like, oh, here's this free-to-play game. And I was like, blown away. Played that for a few years, got busy with life, kind of fell off of it, and then got back heavy into it within the past about year or so. And then especially in November with the, that's when I started streaming it all the time. But, so, with MechWarrior Online, it has been getting some dev love lately with the legends. Love my scale shot. Everyone knows that. I just love flying around the map super fast, shooting all those SRMs in your face.
Still got nothing on my Pirates Bane.
The fatties hate it when you sneak up behind them and blow out their back with one alpha strike. Makes them cry. Makes me happy. So, in no particular order here. So, Solaris 7, I was getting back into MechWarrior Online, coming off my deployment, and that's when Solaris 7 was like the new thing. It always seemed, I don't know if the community took it. I feel like maybe 10% of the players actually like dove into it. But Solaris 7's now gone. Will there be anything to replace the Solaris 7 mode?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll go back in time a little bit to the beginning of MWO.
By all means.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting story because we had, the history goes back to about 2008, actually. So in 2008, I met Jordan Wiseman for the first time. He had just kind of left Microsoft. Not to go too back far in time, but of course, Fossil was bought by Microsoft, so on and so forth. And he spent some time there, and then he was gone. He had a new company called Smith and Tinker, and they were working on some stuff. And the bottom line is, I met him, and I said, "Hey, I want to work with the MechWarrior." And at that time, Smith and Tinker had the licenses from Microsoft, and that's when, I don't know if you guys remember this or if you came across it. It was the summer of 2009 when we released that original video, remember, for a MechWarrior game. It was using the Unreal Engine. It might have been like Unreal 3 at the time or something. Can't remember now. Yeah, I think something like that. So that was our initial
UAV that pops
right.
out of
the Warhammer and Atlas fighting in the city.
Yeah.
Right.
That was
yes,
an awesome
that's right.
video.
So that was like we wanted to make it would have been it wouldn't have been MWO. It would have been like more of a traditional sort of MechWarrior game. Maybe it would have become MechWarrior 5 even back then, and like, kind of thing. And it was going to be, I think it had multiplayer component and stuff, but interesting time. 2008 was like one of those major down cycles in gaming, right? There was like not a lot of stuff going on and everything. So we didn't get that off the ground. We didn't have the funds to, make the whole thing ourselves and whatever. And the rights, stayed with Smith and Tinker, etc. Then they went through some company changes and whatnot, and Jordan was gone, and the rights were still there at Smith and Tinker. And then it was in 2011, early 2011, when I licensed the rights for MechWarrior from Smith and Tinker. And so that's when Piranha Games became the license holder. And so that's when we began work on MWO. At the time, we didn't know it was going to be MWO. Like, we got the rights, and now we're in a position of saying, okay, what are we going to make? I knew I wanted to make a MechWarrior game. But we didn't have the funds to go make some, $10+ million, single player game. 10 plus then. It costs us a lot more now to make games like MechWarrior 5 Clans. But we didn't have enough. And so this was in the time when free-to-play was starting to become a thing. A lot of them were sort of this cheesy, like, browser-style games, and that didn't really interest me, and I didn't think we could do anything with that. But then World of Tanks, which is actually a game that I still play today, was just becoming huge, especially in North America. And I thought, oh, okay, this is proof that you can make like a kind of a heavy install client server game and make it free to play. And we can probably afford to get the first, sort of like MVP, version of it out under our own, funds and kind of go from there. And so the company at that point was 11 years old. We started in 2000. This was 2011. And what's crazy is I think we shipped the beta by the fall of 2012. So we maybe 18 months development, which is kind of crazy to think about. But and Friends and Family was before that. But anyhow, we had decided we were going to make MechWarrior Online. I was like, okay, this is either going to work or it's going to be the last game that we make. It's just, that's it. We're going to go for it. So we just went for it. We, a lot of inspiration from World of Tanks, as you can see. Like kind of the way that you collect your, mechs versus tanks is quite similar, and the round-based combat. And yeah, it evolved from there. But that initial MWO product, I believe I might be getting this mixed up, but like it was October of 2011 that we announced to the world that we're making it, if I'm not mistaken. It was the Halloween kind of Twitter campaign. Maybe you guys weren't around then, playing, I don't know. And then it was about just a little over a year later, we went to sort of like a open beta. And then I think maybe the following fall of 2013 is kind of the official launch of MWO. Anyhow, so that was a bit of a history lesson there, if you didn't know that. And we've had lots of major expansions kind of leading up to Solaris 7. And I'll tell you kind of why I feel like Solaris 7 was a failure, in my opinion. So before that, there was just, maps and modes and stuff. And then, of course, the first major kind of thing we did was the whole clan invasion mechs for MWO. And I'm on a total blur now. Was that 2014? Somewhere in there, I think.
Pretty sure it was around 2014, because I know I had just moved to Vancouver, Washington, and that's when I discovered MWO. And then I also discovered that my old laptop couldn't really run it that well. So.
Yeah, system requirements always get us, man.
Yeah, 2014-ish. That was a big expansion, of course. Yeah, and then I don't know, Solaris, is that around 2016-ish? I'm not sure. It was a major release, and problem with Solaris 7 was it really never had a chance to succeed, because the problem we always suffered in MWO, and we fell into this trap a lot of times in the early years. The community is very loud and has a lot of opinions, and
yes, it does.
Well, and but they don't really want to they don't want to accept maybe the reality of the situation. Let's put it that way. Like, let's say the reality of the situation is, I'm not even talking about resources necessarily at Piranha or anything. I'm talking about like, okay, MechWarrior Online is okay. It's doing well. It's making money or whatever. Like, it was a successful game. I mean, small by big company standards, but was, there and making money. But the player base, like even in those days, I think MechWarrior Online peaked maybe when we first went to Steam and stuff. Like, we might have seen, there's all these numbers that are blurring my head now, but like maybe saw 8,000 to 10,000 concurrent players. Which isn't bad. Nowadays in North America, World of Tanks, it can get down as low as 3,000 or 4,000 at night, and can be maybe 10,000 to 14,000 on the weekend or days, and more during holidays and stuff. So like, not bad at its peak, but it spent a significant portion of its life. Like, even say around the Solaris time, probably 2,000 to 3,000 peak concurrent player count. Now, you'll hear DAU. DAU was still probably 20,000. That's the number of people that log in during a day. But it's insane to really realize just how many people you need to log in per day to rack up a peak concurrent player count. You could have 10,000 people logging in a day, but you'd only have maybe 2,000 to 3,000 peak concurrent players. And then we still had, back in those days, we probably still had about 100,000 MAU. So about 100,000 unique people would log in per month. And with 100,000 unique people logging in per month, you'd still only end up with 2,000 to 3,000 at peak concurrent. Maybe we spent a good amount of time with MWO. Maybe at our peak in the evening was maybe more like a little over 4,000, let's call it, like 4,000 concurrent players. Not bad. If you're feeding one 12v12 queue, no big deal. But if you've been around long enough, the players wanted a group queue for competitive reasons, so we had a group queue. And then you had to have a 12v12 queue, because you want a 12-man showing up and fighting like 6 groups of 2. It's just an absolute circus, right? And so over time, these things all got collapsed, right? And there's one queue now, and you can have a group up to certain, which is, we should have realized early on. Like, but we let ourselves be pushed too much by pressure, like, you guys are idiots unless you do both queues, kind of thing. But the evidence was right there. World of Tanks was a much bigger game than us, and they had one queue, and your max group size was 2. Unless you had a premium account, you could have 3. And I just think they had some more wisdom there and some experience of like how it takes to make a queue run properly. But at any rate, so we tried a lot of things those early years. We had like a bunch of different queues and stuff, and we called them buckets. Like, because when the matchmaker is trying to kick off, let's say, even if you have 4,000 people online, you probably only have 200 people at any given moment in the queue searching for a match. Because of those 4,000 people online, a whole bunch of them are in Mech Lab. A bunch of them are going to get a drink. A lot of guys are going pee. Some are just chatting in the text channel. So you got 200 people in the queue. And one of them is a 12-man, sitting there waiting for another 12-man to show up. You only got 188 others in there. Most of them are just trying to drop solo. 80, 90%. In fact, our stats showed us that solo players in like groups of 2 made up like 90% of the queue. So we had like 10% of the queue that was groups of 3 and larger. Yet, the player base wanted a group queue and a 12v12 queue and this queue. Very challenging to make those buckets. And then, of course, if the wait time was more than a minute, they'd be mad. So you got to have fast matches, but you got to have a queue for everybody. So very challenging with games like this. So then Solaris 7 comes into the picture. And all over again, we're essentially making the same mistake. Like, think about it. Because we're sitting there going, well, they're going to be mad unless they can bring any mech they want. So therefore, we have to have a queue for like every tonnage range and like every combination of mechs. And, oh, well, they're going to want to play with their friends. So we need a 2v2 queue in there too. 2v2 in Solaris. Now you're splitting people off of the regular random match queue. You go into Solaris queue. Have all these other buckets. It's just not enough players. So it was dumb. And we should have, right from the get-go, done what we've done now, which is make it a special event. Even World of Tanks to this day, if they like playing their various modes, like they have front lines or this or that, they're periodic events. They come around for like a week, and then they're gone. And then 3 months later, they come back. So we should have done something with Solaris where it's like we do now, essentially, where it's an event. It's like, hey, this weekend, there's a Solaris queue, 1v1, 50 tonners. And just let that run for the weekend. And then I think the feature would have had a chance. But as it stood, it sat there and rotted. And we didn't even talk about community warfare or clan wars, whatever whatever term. We used multiple terms over the years. That was different, though. That was almost the most exciting time in MWO was when community warfare, as it was originally called, first came online. It was another queue, another bucket, of course, but it was 12v12, but you brought a drop ship 4 mechs with you, right? So you could drop 4 times. So essentially it was 48 versus 48. The original era of community warfare had a pretty cool run there for a bit, but it just ran into the same problems, So that's so as far as to answer your question about a mode to replace Solaris 7, I think the replacement's already there. I think it's talk to Matt and Darren and the community runners over there and have them run Solaris events. Running, so we can still run Solaris. The mode has gone from permanent status, but it's still in the game. We can run it as weekend events anytime we want. Same with community warfare. We've essentially made all of those past things now special event things, right? Like we can turn on the comp queue for a tournament when we have a tournament. We can turn on the Solaris 7 queue when there's an event. We can turn on the community. It's community warfare. It's not full time anymore, is it? Is the event status?
Talking about like faction play?
Yeah,
faction play.
Yeah, I think it's still there in the background, but I don't think anybody. The only reason I go to faction play is to mess because that's where the unit is. So to invite people into our unit and that. But I think that's about the only thing.
Is it still running full time? Eh?
It's
as far as I know.
Yeah, we've debated many times making it, sort of seasonal or event based as well. That's probably one of the biggest shames I feel when I think about MWO. Like not like, oh, shame on me, more like it's such a shame that mode isn't bigger because, oh man, the work we put into faction play, like all those call to arms that pop up and things of like, join the queue now. And like there's so much work there. There's actually so much to watch the planets change in real time in the map of the Innisphere. It really is a shame that event isn't just more popular. And that's a whole other discussion why that happened. We ran into the same problems over there too, where, oh, well, everyone wants to be their favorite faction. We've got to have every faction, all the Innersphere main 5, and then there's Razalog, and then of course like all the clans, and then you gotta have mercs and independents, and like way too many buckets. if faction play from the get-go was like how it kind of evolved over the years, it was like right now, right, we just have fronts. If I'm now see some of this is coming back to me now. Now it might be like, oh, this week it's Davian versus Rita, and they're fighting over this particular front. But then of course what you'd get is we had all these systems in place to try to make the factions even, but it's very hard to match skill levels, right? And what you'll find is, even though players complained about competitive nature of faction play, like how much they get steamrolled, no matter what we try to do to even out the skill among the factions, the players would all swarm to the winning faction. Everyone wants to be in the winning faction. So as soon as like one group got, Lord or some of these, like, remember the hardcore, like, comp guys, it'd all just flow there. And then you'd have like 70% of the player base in this one bloated superpower faction just steamrolling the whole universe. And then a bunch of plebs like me that would show up and like feel like I have to like join the resistance just to get steamrolled. So anyhow, went down a tangent there, but like replacement for Solaris 7. No, I think it's there. We can have events. I think it's more about making suggestions to Matt and the team there, and how maybe, the best ideas we can come up with for, say, running like maybe a week-long Solaris event, and run a queue and try to make it, get the community behind it in certain ways, and have it really have a population show up to play it for that week. Things like that. But people love random queue. That's the biggest thing I learned through the whole thing. Random queue is king, because I think you said it. You can log on, you can just hit launch, you can play for like 8 or 9 minutes, and then go have dinner. And it's hard to beat random queue. Sorry, did I even answer your question, or did I?
I mean, yeah, you did. I would say like the event queue has been a lot of fun. We've been having a lot of fun with that, and then throwing in the bonuses for the extra C bills, and all this other stuff. Or you can bring a drop deck of 4 assaults, all 100 tons, and they get 200% armor bonus. And it's just a lot of fun. Just be blasting away.
Okay, so my turn to ask a question.
Yeah.
Do we give away? Are we the most generous free-to-play game in the world?
Yes.
I mean,
yes,
and we love it.
It's not close, right? We give away everything. We give away the farm. Like,
yeah.
I think we've given up too much soft currency like for years and years and years and years. I mean, dude's end of round screen showing like 300,000 sea bills or something. It's just like, okay. But
honestly, it's not the sea bills.
It is what it is.
It's the war horns.
War horns
are the best.
I love my war horns. Oh man. I mean, I was super stoked when I saw the Solaris 7 announcement. My initial expectation for it, I guess you could say, because I was initially off-put by the 1v1 or the 2v2, because I came into the gaming side of MechWarrior with MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries, and I spent all my time on Solaris 7, and in MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries Solaris, it was a 12-player free-for-all. So I was expecting like a 12 to 24-player free-for-all in this massive arena that, would generate leaderboards, this, that, and the other. That was my initial expectation of it. Maybe that's something we can bring over to that team and talk about having some massive free-for-all days.
I think we probably thought at the time, like, we already have a 12v12 mode, and it's called random queue, kind of thing. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Maybe that would have been better. Maybe just like, because Solaris, I think, I didn't realize that 4 was a free-for-all. Was that PvP then, or was that?
No, it's just
it was 100%
AVE.
Yeah, PvE.
Oh, PvE, yeah.
Just you against, you had a bunch of bots on your side and a bunch of bots on their side, or whatever?
There was just a bunch of bots. Everyone was just shooting each other.
For MechWarrior 4 Mercs, Solaris, there's 12 mechs in the arena, and it was all out free-for-all. Every single time.
I don't remember that.
Every once in a while, you would have an AI pair up with you and would say,
until the end.
Yeah.
They'd come on your private comm and be like, hey, let's team up until the end.
You know what? Just I can just imagine now, because I've been a little bit disconnected from MWO for a while, understandably. Like, I've been doing nothing but mercs and now clans, and I've got good guys like Matt and Darren, all the guys that run things over there in MWO. So I'm a total useless noob on MWO now. Like, I'm terrible. I'd be hard pressed to break like 150 damage if I dropped in right now. So But yeah, man, there's so many gotchas with PvP games. It's like, it's incredibly hard. It is some of the hardest development you can do. It is an unbelievably hard. Like, so someone will say, great, let's do a 12v12 free for all. And then someone's going to be like, okay, so like when, these guys decide to like team up or like throw the match and just all these things that come up. And then next thing you know, the forums are lit up.
No one would ever do that.
PGI sucks. They can't stop this from happening. It's just like,
Well, that kind of reminds me too. When Among Us got huge, right? Everyone loved Among Us, but then in the little chats when they'd call a meeting or whatever, like those two are in Discord. They're they know more shit because they're together on Discord, and there's like no way around it. So I mean, I get that.
Okay, Mike, we know you were just trying to get a job for after the army.
Yeah, we I know that there's factions out there. Phil at NG&G comes to mind. I mean, he's excited about clans and stuff, but like there's a group of people out there that just like they just want to know, like, okay, well, when's MechWarrior Online 2? Like, when is the next PvP game? So
yeah,
that's on our mind. It's on our mind. First things first, we got to get clans out the door. We got to ship it, and it's got to be really good. That's the nature of the world nowadays. I mean, you're only as good as your last game. So like, clans comes out and it's a total dog. Like, they're probably, who knows? Maybe that's it for us, right? Like, there's no more MechWarrior. Who knows? We got to do a good job at this one. So it's all hands on deck. But I know there's a thirst out there for more PvP, for sure.
So with that, I've noticed the comp circuit seems to be getting pretty popular. Is there any talks about a regular ranked league dropping as teams, whether it's in this comp circuit, and maybe that's something that would potentially replace faction play? Because, like I said, the only reason I think anybody goes into faction play anymore is to manage the unit, because you get the little unit tag next to your name. And so when you drop in a random match, you can pick out real quick, like, okay, that's a team, that's a team, that's a team. So we're not playing full, 12 randos. There's about, some teams of two that are able to coordinate in there, which is what we do. That's what everybody does now. But is there any talks about getting more serious into ranked play?
Not really. I guess I like that. I like the thought of it. So in order to answer that question, I feel like I have to kind of go back in time again with just comp play. So there was it was a really cool, exciting time around. So the MechCons themselves, right? That was really fun. MechCon, I think it's 2016, 2017, and 2018, if I'm not mistaken. And each one got bigger than the last. So I think in was it 2016? I think we gave away $100,000 in prizes. It was $100,000. I think the winners got like $50,000, and can't remember now. But it was $100,000 in prizes, and we gave it a real shot to kind of see if we could push. We kind of like tried to tease everyone out there, like the comp players, and saying, and I think maybe for good reason, saying, kind of put the message out onto the internet that like this was the hardest, game to get good at, so to speak. I don't know if that's true or not, but like, we like to kind of think it is, because it's not like just a twitch shooter. You're shooting one weapon. Like, it's kind of fast, but manipulating your torso and twisting 360 as you jump through the air and alpha strike guys with a couple PPCs in the face. Like, there's a lot going on. You're managing your heat, you're managing your weapon groups, you're managing your torso and in your speed, and then looking at the map. And so I thought we kind of said, hey, like, this is the highest skill cap, out there for sort of like an FPS comp game. So come play. And we had some great tournaments. I don't know if you guys were involved in the community back then. We had the comp tournaments at the 3 MechCons. We called them the MechWarrior Online World Championships, right? So what we found, I think the comp mode was actually pretty cool in MWO. Like, that screen was fairly underutilized, but you could go in there with the logo for your team, as I recall, and sign up with other teams. But like everything else with MWO, it's sort of like nicheness of MechWarrior just didn't quite make it work. Like, at any given moment, there was maybe half a dozen sort of like full 12v12 teams online trying to compete with each other, and I would say only 2 or 3 of them were really good. Like, was it called Lord? Is that what they were called? There was just one called. They won the tournament. They won the tournament a couple times in a row. They were called Lord. They're like 4 letters. They raffle stomped everybody. Like it just wasn't close. So like it was. You had some other dudes that like it's because then what would happen is we'd get a lot of shit for like letting Lord go through and raffle stomp some like dad crew. It's just like some dudes, just some dads that got together. They loved MechWarrior. They had a 12-man team and they were pretty good players. They're all right. They had fun. They loved it, and they'd stop playing because they'd get the shit kicked out of them by Lord. And then be like, you should skill match this, right? So you have to put us in a different tier than those guys. But then again, we're back to buckets, right? Now it's like, who's in the bucket with Lord then? Nobody? Like, so I know, it's kind of sad to hear because I think a lot of people, we love this IP so much and you'd like to think that it's much bigger, than it is. And there's just, enough players to make all these things happen. Now, maybe it would be different this time. A lot's happened since then. MechWarrior Online's been around now for, almost 12 years this fall since open beta. It's crazy. Since then, we've shipped MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries onto Xbox, onto PlayStation, Steam, Epic, GOG, 6 DLCs, sold 2 million units across everything on Mercs. And then you have plans coming out. It's going to sim ship on PlayStation, Xbox, PC. So, maybe it's growing. Maybe MechWarrior is getting bigger and bigger. Maybe if there was a MechWarrior 9 2, for lack of a better word, maybe some of these concepts. And if we executed better in the earlier years, maybe with the buckets and kind of making better decisions, maybe it could work. Maybe we could garner a much, much bigger player base to make some of these concepts fly. I think for MWO now, though, is pretty much what it is. Like, I don't think at this point you can like relaunch a comp mode and have it be like 10x more popular and stuff. So much about today's games is about that initial hype wave. And if you don't capture that hype perfectly at the beginning, that's it. It's very punishing. So I don't know. That's how I see it. I don't think, there's like some magical resurgence in store for MechWarrior Online where it becomes, like a larger population base, say, in the future than it is today. I'd love to be wrong, but, that's where we sit. I don't even remember what the original question was, but I'm sure somewhere in there I answered it.
You did.
You definitely did. I mean, you
actually answered a couple of the questions that we had.
kind of already know. Like, the last one on here is like, will there be an MWO2? Which, I mean, so what I gathered basically is for all those MechWarrior Online players that love the game and have this wish list, get your homies to play the freaking game. We need player count. That's what I'm hearing. But I'll kind of combine the last two real quick. I mean, so I guess I'll say this. If there were to be a MechWarrior Online 2, would it probably use the Unreal Engine 5, which is what MechWarrior 5 Clans will be on?
Yeah, like I've had one message to the MechWarrior Online community now for probably, maybe even like 8 years now. Like, I don't even know. Like, I've been getting questions about MechWarrior Online 2 for a long time. And I think because ever since, 2016 at MechCon is when we announced MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. It was like, had the big moment on stage where like we played this video and knowing what was going on. It was like MechWarrior 5 Mercs. It was like, it was awesome. And from that moment on, it was like, oh, are you going to upgrade MWO2 to Unreal? And it's like, look, man, it would cost many millions of dollars, many millions. Maybe it would cost $10 million to upgrade, MechWarrior Online, all the content, everything, the code base, the whole client server, everything, like upgrade it to Unreal 4. And it's not close to, being, big enough or enough, revenue generation to justify that. And so it became clear, I think for at least 8 years now, I've been telling people, it's like, look, the reality is we probably still have 50,000 MAU, 50,000 people a month that log in to play MWO. And a lot of these guys have spent hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on MWO. And I get that. I've spent, who knows, many thousands on like World of Tanks and stuff. And so there's an investment now that players have in MWO, and I completely appreciate that. But the reality is, if there was an MWO 2, a successor PvP product, it would be a brand new game, completely unrelated and attached to MWO, meaning your account isn't. Game design has changed so much since then. I can tell you almost with like 100% certainty that whatever the successor game would be, it wouldn't have the same, PvP. It's very dated sort of free-to-play PvP dynamics that MWO has, where, you just strictly like 12v12 round-based with, this sort of mecha decks of like, your mechs and things. Like, it'd probably be very, very different. And the point being that you aren't going to transfer over all that content that you've bought in MWO over to MWO2, and all of a sudden you log into MWO2 and it's like brand new modern Unreal 5 version of MWO, and you have all your hundreds of mechs and skins and war horns and all the things you had in MWO2. That really wouldn't be a new game then, wouldn't it? Like, you wouldn't spend, $20 million making MWO2 to have it really just be a better graphics version of an outdated design from 2011, 2012, PvP characteristics. So it'd be an all new game. And I think so maybe people are coming around to that notion more and more accepting of that sort of reality. But I can tell you when, even back in like what it was 2015, 2016, 2017, people really didn't have a lot of time for that. They were just like, whoa, I way too invested in MWO. I'm not just going to like walk away from all this content. Totally 100% understand. So, maybe MechWarrior Online could continue to exist, but you can see how that's a challenge from my perspective as well, too, right? Like, we're sitting over there and say, should we spend $20 million and make MechWarrior Online 2? Well, hey, okay, we think we've grown the market since then. We've shipped mercs, we've shipped clans, maybe it's a lot bigger. We've learned a ton. We've got better technology. We kind of understand how to work with the community better than we could before. We know how to like run these buckets and matchmaking thing a lot more efficiently. But then you look over there and say, but yeah, our core community is playing MWO, and we need the support of the core community. Like we need the core community to move over to our new game we just spent $20 million on to make in order to give it a shot to succeed. If we do everything perfect. Yeah,
that's a story of a lot of video games. Is where I've heard this song where they have an older game and it split the player base. I think an example is EverQuest back in the day, where they had EverQuest 1 and EverQuest 2, and they didn't want to get rid of EverQuest 1 because a lot of people were married to that, and that sunk both titles because they split their player base in half. I think, that has to be that makes sense that you would just have to cut the cord on MWO. If the community wanted something new, that's just something they would have to accept.
And it'd be very difficult to make it up to them, right? Like, meaning, sure, you could offer MWO players certain, perks or like free content that would exist in the new game or something, but it would not be, anything remotely close to the investment they put in MWO. But at some point, it's like, I guess, and it's easier for me to say, I suppose, because I'm on the developer side of things. But, people have spent a lot of money over it, but you might say, I played 2,000 hours of MWO. I mean, 2,000 hours of entertainment. That's a lot of entertainment. Like, how much does it cost to go to a movie these days for 2 hours? Like, I don't know. It's, you get some popcorn and a drink, you're at like $50 practically, it seems like. So, everyone has a different perspective.
That is the exact argument I used to justify spending money on video games. How many hours of entertainment do I get for the investment that I put into it?
Yeah, and I guess if you buy your modern AAA game, what do they charge now? $70 US for $69.99?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, at least. Easy. If you don't get deluxe versions or whatever. So let's call it $70 US. How many hours do you expect to get out of that? Like, you want to get at least 15 to 20 hours? I don't know. It depends on the game. So, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for people to, come to that realization that a brand new game would have that. And so I think this is just me completely spitballing. And I think I've said this before in other podcasts. I don't think this is like brand new, but I think if there's going to be another PvP product, MechWarrior PvP product, I don't think it would end up being a completely. First off, I highly doubt. I think there's only about a 1% chance it would be a free-to-play game again. I do think we've moved away from free-to-play in North America quite a bit since MWO's time. and Piranha 2, our last 2 full products, the last 8 years, we've been back in more of the premium space, as they say. It would not be a free-to-play game, almost certainly. And I think when you take that consideration, then it feels to me that a new PvP game would probably be a part of a game, not the entirety of a game. So what I mean is, kind of like how Call of Duty has, the big single player campaign, and they have a robust multiplayer component. So I think that would be the case. So for example, let's say MechWarrior 6. If MechWarrior 5 Clans does really well, maybe MechWarrior 6 is a whole new storyline. Who knows? Maybe it's clans, maybe it's back into Inner Sphere, and who knows, some big linear, deep, rich narrative story campaign like Clans has, but also happens to have a really sick and deep sort of PvP component built into it as well. But ultimately, it's just it's a premium product you pay $60-$70 for, and like more like a Call of Duty style game rather than in a free to play, rather than like MWO. So these are just thoughts change over years, but that's kind of where the market and things seem to be now. And I would just think it'd be the most likely outcome for a future PvP component, rather than a true like MWO 2, free to play sequel.
I'd buy it.
Yeah.
To be completely fair, I would love to have a single player campaign with the replayability that MechWarrior 5 has, and hopefully that Clans will have, and then have the side portion that is essentially kind of what we get for MechWarrior Online, where we can just jump in, play, and then hop out or go back to the campaign.
And to go back to MWO, a scenario like I described is probably the best case scenario for MWO, because that probably means MWO gets to just live on, right? It doesn't need to be replaced by the sequel per se, because that new multiplayer component, being a part of, say, like MechWarrior 6 and part of a single player campaign, but also has multiplayer, doesn't mean we have to look at MWO as a rival, because I think the core community, as we discussed, will come play and buy and be involved in MechWarrior 6, but can also go play MWO. So
I definitely think
again,
that I was just going to say, I think by the time that Piranha gets around to MechWarrior 6 and integrating something like this, I can't see MWO being around still. It's just, at that point, it'll just be too old. The technology will be too old. As much as we love the game, it shows its age a little bit.
I mean, what are we at now? I guess it's like a legitimate between 10 and 11 years old since the official launch even. So yeah, it's getting up there. Every time I play it, I'm still kind of amazed at how decent it looks and stuff, though.
It is still very fun. It's still a very pretty game. It's just looking down the road.
It's older design mechanics, for sure.
It's still very fun.
Yeah, it's definitely has a different feel. You can see the progression of MWO to Mercs to Clans, but yeah. So that's that. What was I talking about again? Was MechWarrior 9, MechWarrior 9 2? Yeah.
Republic of the Sphere, MechWarrior 6. Dark Ages.
Oh, God.
You know why I want that.
I know.
I need my tripods.
Yeah, your super heavies. All right, well, let's move on over to your bread and butter, MechWarrior 5 Clans. I will say that I watched the trailer. Man, I am hype.
The trailer is very exciting.
Oh my gosh.
The mocap, the dialogue stuff from the trailer, all looks great.
The integration of cutscenes into the latest DLCs for MechWarrior 5, I think, was a super smart move, and I think we can see that in the trailer for Clans, and it just looks awesome. I'm with Mike and Brent that it looks amazing. I can't wait to play it.
Oh, everything at Piranha seems to sort of, when you're a smaller studio, I've said a lot of this at GDC interviews, and maybe you guys caught some of it, but like a lot of things are kind of in evolution. Like MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries, for example, told you what my vision was and everything, and that was definitely the case. But at some point, even Mercs was going to be, I didn't know if it was going to be a small sort of like add-on type thing, and it just kind of grew and evolved into what it was. Clans is kind of the same. And there was probably a moment, like, I don't know, not very long, maybe a few weeks, a month in the process in MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries DLC process, thinking maybe it would be a DLC, right? Like, maybe Clans would be a DLC. But it became clear really quickly, like, okay, come on. Like, this is the Clans. Like, this is epic. This is huge. Like, this needs to have, like, you can't make a big enough DLC to do this justice, so it should be standalone. That was obvious, and that came to that conclusion pretty quickly. It's like, okay, we're making a new standalone game, MechWarrior 5 Clans. Then, of course, I knew I wanted to try to do, like, we had the sandbox simulator game in Mercs, so I wanted to do a linear story-based campaign more. But, you know, our abilities at Piranha, or, you know, our experiences of doing, like, a deep, rich story was pretty limited. Like, but, I mean, MechWarrior itself is pretty limited in that way, historically, right? Like, let's be honest, like, MechWarrior 5 Mercs might have been the deepest, richest storyline that's been in a MechWarrior game yet, and you know how deep that was, meaning not very deep, right? Fairly surface level. Some story, some semblance of some characters, mostly reading a lot of text, and you're right, the DLCs added more cutscene stuff, which was cool. So I was a little uncertain when we first started Clans. I knew I wanted to tell much more of a story, but I didn't really know for sure how much better we would get beyond Mercs when it comes to storytelling. But we had some really motivated people in the studio that wanted to dive a lot deeper into the technology, and we essentially hired like an entirely new cinematics and character team. Like, we're not talking about a couple people. We're talking about like a team of like 20 people, 20 people deep on like characters, animation, motion capture. We bought the suits, motion capture suits. We built some of our own suit technology around like, not technology, but the gear, helmets, things that we needed to adapt to make our process work better. We cast an actor crew locally in Vancouver. We did all the, casting of the characters locally. Full motion capture. I don't know if this could be news. This could be a nugget for the podcast. You guys saw the small trailer for GDC. You know, and people that came there got to see a longer version of that. That isn't just like a cutscene that starts the game. I mean, I'm not sure how much to say here. There's well over an hour of motion capture cinematics in MechWarrior 5 Clans. Wow. This game is a BattleTech novel come to life. I mean, it is, you're going to meet dozens of characters and through significant storytelling and narration, and see famous moments that you've only read in like a bullet point list of canon and lore, and see them and experience them firsthand. And the animation team, the cinematic team, absolutely crushed it. Like, they came so close to, like, say, being able to call it AAA. Like, AAA is AAA, right? I think something like Spider-Man spent like $100 million in cinematics or something. Like, I mean, it's just absolutely insane. Like, but like, the guys, they for what, you know, our budget is and what this game is, they went above and beyond. Like, essentially, they went so far above and beyond. When I saw the first cinematics rolling off the thing, I thought, oh, we're making a completely different game than I thought we were making. Like, that changed the entire course of the game. Yeah, for the first time ever, I was going to because I mean, the product director on the game, but also like the campaign director. I worked directly with the level design crew and working on the campaign. I said, guys, like, we got to step up. Like, for the first time ever, our storytelling was outpacing the combat. And combat simulation was our bread and butter, right? Ever since from MechWarrior Online to MechWarrior 5, if anyone said anything about our games, they'd say, great combat simulation. You know, maybe the story's a little weak, but there's amazing combat simulation. And we just, that was our bread and butter. We hung our hat on that. So I was like, we got to step up. Like, we got to step up the gameplay, like, keep up with now what's become, the storytelling and cinematics of this product. So there's a massive amount of storytelling, a massive amount of cinematics, and people are going to, like, the BattleTech nerds are going to lose their minds. They're just going to absolutely be blown away. So
we're already losing our minds.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
I mean, I remember, so actually it was Phil, I think, one of his videos, And I love this. I absolutely love this. I was telling him something similar, I think, I can't remember now when. It was a podcaster showed up on his stream one time. I don't even remember anymore. And I basically said that, like, hey, I think I said something like, you've never seen storytelling like this in a MechWarrior game before. And he's just sort of like, yeah, okay. And then, of course, he came to GDC. Well, he didn't come to GDC, but I gave him a full GDC presentation of what we had. And at the very least, he was like, I got to hand it to him. Like, he was right. Like, this, I was not expecting what I saw. So yeah, we're super excited about Clans. Like, I think we have a real opportunity here. If we ever had an opportunity to sort of crack more outside of the niche category of MechWarrior fans and go broader reaching, I think it's Clans. And I think the reason is because the narration and the storytelling. I mean, recently we're putting a trailer together for June, and I was talking to a PR agency and stuff, and we were talking about what the content of the trailer should be. And there was some talk about maybe making it action-y or something, and I was like, look, we've been making MechWarrior action trailers for 12 years. I mean, they're great and all, but like, what's going to turn new people out of this game is to see all these characters and see this universe. Because we've always said that, BattleTech is one of the richest, space operas in science fiction ever. Just nobody knows it because the games never showed it. The games had no storytelling. So it was like, it gave the impression it's the shallowest, space opera to ever be created, but it really isn't. Anyone that's written the hundreds of novels, I mean, the content out there is so rich. So I think this is the first time, well, I know it's the first time it's ever been shown, in a video game product. So really, really maximizing Unreal 5 to the fullest. The amount of, storytelling content is huge, and the game isn't small either. I'm going to hang on to that for now, but like come June, we'll do the release date trailer, and we'll have probably some interviews around there. We'll probably talk about the length of the game. Hey, you're not going to play it for 300 hours like you did in Mercs, that's for sure. This is a linear storytelling campaign, but there's a good amount of content in there and some replayability aspects as well. So anyhow, yeah, we're very excited. I mean, it's shipping this year. Everyone knows that. Yeah, I mean, it'll come out this year.
I'll say with MechWarrior 5 Mercs, I didn't find out until like after I'd already played for a bit. I only recently became a reader within the past couple years, and the BattleTech universe is the only universe that can hold my attention, and I can sit and read for hours. And it is the only thing I'll read because nothing else gets my attention like that, both from the tactical side, the political side, the espionage, like all that stuff. I love all of it. And then I don't even know when I discovered it, but it was definitely after I'd already played like through the campaign and everything for Mercs that I discovered that Randall Bills wrote everyone's background stories and put it in an anthology novel, The Mercenary Life. So I was able to get the background on Rihanna and just that whole bit leading up to the opening cutscene of the game. That added to a lot of the story for MechWarrior 5 Mercs. So I'm super excited for to play a full novel through in a game. Yeah, that's...
You might have some tough decisions to make. Who knows?
Uh-oh. Turn to page 42. Choose your own adventure books. That takes me back. Holy shit.
Oh, man.
The Hardy Boys.
I guess I haven't actually really asked any of those questions yet. Yeah. Well, I mean, actually, you did kind of cover the road from Mercs to Clans, so I guess we'll just move on to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing else I'd say is, you might like this little... So, like, when we announced MWO, 2011, of course, it was like, oh my god, it's been 10 years since a MechWarrior game. People were ecstatic. And then the very next breath, they were like, this is great, but where's MechWarrior 5, right? And MechWarrior 5 came out. I think similarly, people were totally stoked. But I feel like I think we've been chasing, what people have really been craving the most over the last, 13 years. So what I mean by that again is like, as you can see, MechWarrior Online is really popular with people. Like those that love it. I mean, holy shit, they've been playing it for 10 years, and people like some people are just like, cool, that's cool about MechWarrior 5, but where's MechWarrior Online 2? Like they just really love PvP. I remember when MechWarrior Online came out, there was this sense of like, this is neat, but like, where's the rich story, right? People are craving the rich story, and even with MechWarrior 5 Mercs, there's a faction of people. Even though like now today, MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries is an 84% game on Steam. I mean, it's a really highly rated game. It's a really good game, but there's still a faction, even within the hardcore community of MechWarrior community, that didn't really like it that much. Because in my sense is that the biggest reason is they were always really craving that story, that linear, rich BattleTech story. So they didn't get it from MWO, and they didn't really get enough of it from MW5. And so like, I think now maybe for the first time in like 13 years of working with this brand, like we're actually delivering maybe the thing that they wanted the most all along. And I guess it's nice that we took this path to get there though, because I can tell you they're getting a way, way, way better game than if we would have shot straight into MechWarrior 5 clans like back in 2011. That's for sure. This is light years beyond. Like the studio has grown significantly. We're 110 people now. There's 110 people, basically. There's still, there's still a few bit of development going on in MWO, but for all intents and purposes, like the entire studio is all hands on deck on MechWarrior 5 clans. It's a big team, all working in the same direction to make the best product that we've ever made, with all the experience that we've gathered, the best technology you can use. I don't know. I can't wait to get it out. But it's like full time right now, man. Like it's hardcore, full time until we get this thing out.
Yeah, we are super excited about it. I mean, the kiddo. So like, I've got it on the Xbox, and that's one of the nice things about MechWarrior 5 Mercs is that it's multi-platform console, PC console. Whereas MechWarrior Online, he just turned 11. He's never played really any like PvP games, so if I tried to put him on it, he wouldn't have a good time. But I can put Mercs on the Xbox, and then I'll pull Mercs up on Steam, and we can play together, and he loves that. And that's a lot of fun.
I do think that kind of a Boke story is I want to say this with the context that I do love MechWarrior 5, and I understand the trade-off with procedural generation and the ability to kind of have this go wherever, create your own story. And I'm very easily able to, I play a lot of pen and paper RPGs and stuff. I'm very easily able to kind of make my own story of my mercenary fan as I'm going around and playing. But but it does lend itself to eventually you're like, oh, I really, a more bespoke experience, like a deeper storytelling would definitely go a long way. So all the things I've seen and what you're saying about MechWarrior 5 clans is very exciting. Especially I think you hinted at that maybe, there might even be some decision making to be had in the story, which I mean, we haven't really seen anything. I mean, MechWarrior 5, you could argue that you choose the location you're going, you're choosing missions and whatnot, but as far as like what's happening with the story, if you were playing like the main story, you're kind of just along for the ride. Yeah. So even that is, and I can imagine within the culture of the clans, there's some really interesting things you can do with doing something like that. So that's very exciting.
I mean, there'll be a reason to play this game at least twice, and I think that's. Maybe that doesn't sound like a lot, but like when you're talking about a rich narrative-driven linear campaign, that's actually a pretty, big statement, So it'll be a choice, and it'll be heart-wrenching.
It wouldn't be a BattleTech game if it wasn't heart-wrenching. That's where Jason would pop up and be like, "That's what I do."
I was to say we have a battle author that's a reoccurring any of the podcast. He just kind of comes on and hangs out, and he's known for
killing your favorite people.
Yes.
So in the video that NG&G did, where he kind of like deep dived into the trailer. He did point out that variants, as we know with the clan mechs, like you've got your Prime, Alpha, Bravo, all those variants, isn't the route you're going with for this game, which I think is super smart. So how will the Omni system work?
If you can answer.
If you can answer.
I think I can answer it. I don't think that's super touchy or anything. I think it probably just works in exactly the way you'd expect it to work. I mean, it's I think the way we approach it really is this game will be very different from Mercs, of course, or let's say Mercs in a sense definitely had a sort of an escalation of tonnage and escalation, like an arms race type thing. MWO was very much about this notion of like, we don't want the arms race, like we want you to play whatever you want, but also like try to make a light effective on the battlefield, which is kind of like a first in MechWarrior. It wasn't just like an arms race to the 100 tonners. So I think Mercs was an unapologetic arms race. That's what it is, right? It's similar with clans as you'd expect. I mean, you want to have there's a linear story. You're a fresh Sibco, right? So you come out as a fresh Sibco. They don't toss you in direwolves,
Yeah,
Right.
tech progression needs to be a thing.
Yeah. So there's a. So we leaned into that heavy. Like, I mean, there's a lot of progression. There's, from tonnage progression to these might be some little nuggets. Research progression.
Interesting.
Pilot progression. Of course, you might expect that. Mercs had that, but you could think not exactly like Mercs. It's different. A little more unique, let's say, because these characters are actual unique, individuals. Sure, you had your named characters in Mercs, but that was kind of for laughs, almost, wasn't it? Like some of those goofy like portraits and stuff are hilarious. I love it.
Goblin,
the guy at
Goblin.
the egg head and everything.
Yeah.
Goblin's cool. So, but yeah, back to the Omnipods. I would say it works probably like you'd expect. I mean, essentially, you basically start with Prime variants and. Through the metagame, let's just say, in the front end, and through sort of like earned resources, you'll be able to get the other Omnipods, and you can do just what you'd expect, sort of like go full A or Alpha or Bravo, or you can mix and match and just create your variations. So that's really the variance, of course, of clans is when it comes to the Omnipods is. You can,
it's what the mission requires.
It's quite a few combinations you can come up with, of course, between the various Omnipods and the various parts of your mech.
I will say that's one thing I did like about the Omnimechs in MechWarrior Online was the ability to swap out just a singular Omnipod. So if I'm rocking an A for the different hard points. So if I have a full A, but I want the right torso B, I just got to swap that in.
Yeah. I think it works the same way, but clans, of course, is more like Mercs in the sense that we don't have like a bloated hard point system like MWO had. I mean, so it's not like you know what I mean by bloated.
It's not the full on. Right? It's not the full on like tech mech lab, right? You're not going to be swapping out like individual weapons and the Omnis pods.
You can. So I don't want to give the wrong impression here. Yeah. So. Let's just define Mercs first. Mercs was definitely more restrictive than MWO, of course. I mean, MWO's mech lab is like do anything on the face of the planet,
whatever you
possibly manage, right?
You've got energy hard points. That's it.
Yeah, and Mercs was more like, if I remember this correctly, if you
small,
had
medium, large weapons,
medium, large,
yeah,
so there's some flexibility. I'd say that's similar, but actually, if you went one step further, I'm not trying to be coy with you. I'm trying to remember now. There's so much going on.
Of course,
I would just describe it as there's a little more flexibility than Mercs had, but it's not MWO. But I do believe you can still do like have just one part say B and the rest is Alpha. Or you can do that kind of thing. But what I mean by bloated hard points is in MWO it's like okay, Centurion has. An autocannon hardpoint in its right arm, but in MWO, it's not just an autocannon hardpoint. We probably gave it like 4, autocannon, ballistic hardpoints, so that you could do a singular, autocannon 10 or whatever, or You could do like 4 machine guns if you wanted for some reason. So like we bloated the hard points. That's how we created so much variation in MWO. Neither mercs nor clans does the bloating aspect. It's like, okay, there's a ballistic hard point there. Great, there's a ballistic hard point there. And I think there's a little more flexibility in clans in that regard than mercs have. We don't bloat them, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. Got it.
And I'm a fan of that because I'm tired of seeing people walking around in MechWarrior Online with just 1,000 machine guns.
Isn't the Piranha like 12 machine guns or something?
Well, that one was
guns?
designed that way.
Yeah,
but when I see a Fafnir walking around with 15 or what, however machine guns, I'm like, your job was to carry 2 heavy Gauss rifles, not 1,000 machine guns. Okay, I'm liking that. Let's see. So, as you mentioned, the focus is obviously a narrative campaign, which we describe like we love it and are super stoked for it. Will there be some aspect of like a sandbox free play mode outside of the campaign? And if I guess I'll add to that, if it doesn't come shipped with the base game, is that something that might be added on later? Because the narrative focus is obviously the focus for the base game.
Yeah. Well, first off, in the second part, I can say in all honesty, I don't really know yet what add-ons or expansion packs will be a part of clans. I mean, I expect it'll be a big part. I mean, we have 6 DLCs for mercs, but I think we're a little soon. I think, the next 2 months or so, as we get close, like we'll start to have a better idea of what we think add-ons could be. So we'll have to wait and see on that. What was the first part again?
Will there be a sandbox free play mode outside of the campaign?
Certainly not in the same way that mercs had. So there is. I will say there is no. I think this is obvious, but I mean, there's no procedurally generation in this game, and this game is 100% bespoke. Every single level, every single enemy that spawned, where the enemy spawned, what it is, how just every aspect about every single level that you hit is 100% planned, targeted specifically for telling a story. Even you got the cutscenes, but even in the levels themselves, maybe you saw in the B-roll footage or the GDC content, it's like there's pacing moments. A lot of it's even changed since what you saw in GDC. So, for example, you saw me crest the hill in GDC, where I see the 3 Union class dropships.
Mm-hmm.
We even now take a small like letterbox NIS camera moment and let that breathe, and actually we like to let it breathe. That's why I keep telling the level design team, it's like pacing. Like I want the player to realize and notice that the objective marker changed to like hold position to move down to the drop shifts because Sarah Weaver said, okay, move in and investigate, Like, I want this stuff to be, like, we're not, I guess another way to put it is, sometimes people be like, hey, we want to give player choice and stuff like that. You'll have choice in this game in a different way. But ultimately, when it comes to the levels, we're like, no, I want a 100% handcrafted experience. I want the pacing and the storytelling to be perfect. Like, I want it. So we're going through and saying, no, that happened a little. Delay that audio cue by 1 second. That happened a second too soon. That happened a little second too late. Like, no, you want that line to finish and then a second to happen before that explosion goes off. So I want it perfectly crafted to suit the narrative of the game. So like you have these amazing motion captured cinematics with these amazing actors and actresses performing. And I want the levels and the gameplay to feel the same. I want it to be handcrafted. So certainly not sandbox in that way. But there will be sort of a new game plus type of mentality, I guess is the way I'd put it. So like there will be a reason, let's say, to go back and replay missions in a it's just you'll have to wait and see, I guess. But it's there's some replayability. There's definitely some replayability based on the choices, maybe to replay the game, but also even within your campaign, there'll be a way to, re-experience missions and perhaps go for different achievements, let's say, or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm. I say that definitely makes sense, especially from like you said, the focus is the narrative aspect. You're telling a story, so you want the characters that spent all this wonderful time doing all this motion capture and everything else to make it feel like it's not just a video game character, but a character, and real people take a second to think. That breathing room, let it breathe. That makes perfect sense to me. But yeah,
I mean,
because then it would feel like the person thought about what they're about to say.
Yeah,
I like it.
I mean, these actors locally, I mean, they just absolutely killed it. I mean, these are great actors. A lot of them say it's one of the favorite things they've worked on. I mean, think about it. So they do all these motion capture cinematics, but they also are recording like thousands of lines for the in-mission dialogue. And as you saw, we have, full motion video, like picture-in-picture comms now. It's not just like a static image. And so there's a lot of emotion coming through, the communication even within the mission. And a lot more cinematic moments within the missions, right? Custom moments, I'd say.
The dialogue and writing, from the little bit we've got, I was impressed that one, like, I feel like there was a lot to digest, and all of it seemed very much in line with BattleTech lore. It was very true to form, and to be honest, the dialogue blew me away. I kind of, no offense, I kind of expected kind of a level of maybe camp or like cheaper acting, but it was whoever you got, they clearly did a great job, and I'm excited to see their performance going forward because
it's a full cast. It's a full cast, and you got it. So Chris Lowry, who you might know, do you know Chris Lowry? And in part of Piranha, and he was a member of the community for a long time. Okay, maybe you don't. He used to go by Spowerface on Twitter, and he was a part of. He's been working with the company for a long time. He just started out in the community, I guess what I'd say, like MWO community. Anyhow, he works with Catalyst as well. He was the narrative director on the game, so like he wrote everything. He's like, I mean, he's he could work at Catalyst full time, and he
I'm sorry, I do know who he is. I saw an interview on him. Yeah, he was very. He seemed like he really knew his stuff. From that interview I watched,
he did an incredible job. So he wrote He's the narrative director. I mean, he wrote everything. I mean, he's got a team of writers that help him, of course, because there's a lot of writing. I mean, think about all the cinematics and how much I told you cinematics there are. All the missions and the writing in the missions, all the mission briefings, all there's a lot. And we have to localize all of it. And let this be here's a special announcement for your channel. I don't know if you'll think much of this, and I don't even know if this information will reach the right people. We'll see. But like, we've been getting a ton of pressure ever since MWO to Mercs or whatever to localize into Japanese. And so right now, as our plan is, Clans is going to actually go out we're going to add another language and we're going to localize the Japanese. So we'll see if it pays off. I hope it seems like there's a community out there that loves it. Maybe we can grow the BattleTech MechWarrior community more in Japan. But I don't know why I even mentioned that. I guess I mentioned that because of just all the writing and all the localization that has to happen. It's just kind of crazy amount of localization. But yeah, no, dude, I know what you're saying. I was absolutely floored with the performance of the actors. I mean, we considered full SAG actor status for the game, and truthfully, they were going through their strike. And the unfortunate thing with SAG is if you use SAG, you have to use SAG 100% for the entire game. The entire game, every last person. And being up in Vancouver, Canada, that was just a bridge too far for us, to organize that constantly, whether we're flying up to Vancouver or trying to deal with studios in LA or something. So we went local. But as you know, Vancouver, Canada, maybe you don't know, it's considered Hollywood North, right? I mean, they do, massive amounts of shows. Probably about half the favorite shows that you watch, you didn't realize, that was filmed in Vancouver, like Deadpool or whatever. Like, there's so many of them. And there's a lot of great actors up here. And they absolutely killed it. And you know what blew me away the most? It was like, a lot of times the clan lingo and the BattleTech lingo comes across as weird and nerdy and campy when people are trying to say it because they don't understand what they're saying. But the guys did an unbelievable job of setting up like a vocabulary and like a glossary and like how do you pronounce everything? And they just crushed everything, like everything from like saying like Sakhan or like I don't know, just all these like clan things. Like you heard it in the GDC thing of like, let's see what those Stravags on Lunderholm taught you guys, like that. And they just delivered it. It was just like, how does he deliver that? This guy probably never read a single BattleTech word in his life, and he just absolutely killed it.
I've watched that part of the trailer multiple times because it's just. I'll be honest. I'm partial to the clans, and because MechWarrior 2 was kind of my start, and it was so cool seeing. I feel like we've never really gotten to see the clans in like kind of a natural, like conversational setting in any kind of imagery format, any audio video like format, and it was so interesting just to see all of that dialogue kind of come off naturally. It's just absolutely amazing. If everything's like that, it's going to be so cool.
I should take a minute now to say Matthew Lee is his name. Is our cinematic director internally, and a ton of credit goes to him because even though Chris did a great job writing the script, he wrote a very verbose script, but it's Matt that directed the actors. So I went to the motion capture studio day and watched the process in place, and the way he directed them and took take after take to make sure we got what we wanted. That's on him too. So like the performance, it's a full motion body performance, obviously full motion capture, full body and face and speech all at once in one capture. And it's really incredible technology to see how far that's come. Just to be in the reach of smaller studios now. And when I say smaller studios, you're still talking tens of $millions of in production. But of course, tens of millions is peanuts to the hundreds of millions that, or whatever, 500 million that some of these games are probably having spent on them now. But still, just to have that kind of technology in our reach was really, really cool. Those actors crushed it.
Yeah, when I watched that preview cinematic where, was it the Star Captain is chewing out like the Sibco squad?
Kick
I was
Commander,
like,
the Kick Commander, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, this looks, sounds, and feels exactly how I read it in for the Jade Phoenix trilogy, because it was hitting a lot of those same notes because that trilogy starts out when they're in their Sibco, and I was just like, that's it. That's a clan Sibco getting chewed out, man.
There's a longer form version of that, of course, because you only saw snippets of it in the GDC trailer, but he lets on that like I can't remember the terms, but like the Sibco was essentially part of the Kit Commander's bloodline, right? And so he mentions that in the longer form thing, and maybe he did that in GDC trailer too. I'm not sure.
He mentions the blood house that they're a part of, or that they're
my
a part
blood
of.
house.
Yes.
Yeah, he did a great drill sergeant, routine. I mean, it was like he has another like zinger in there. He's like, I am a gracious host, I'll let you prove yourself, kind of thing. Really, really, he crushed it. That dude, man, he killed it. So we have him in the June trailer as well. But so we wanted to get some extra characters into the June trailer because I thought, hey, I don't want everyone to think it's just like. Because I know everyone's underestimating us in that regard. Like, it's like, okay, fine, they had a cool GDC trailer, but like, that's like the one trailer. It's at the beginning of the game when you start the game, and they farmed it out to an external studio, and that's it. And the rest of the games, you're reading walls of text. But no walls of text in this game.
Hell yeah, because I always just, click.
I read it.
So, I mean,
it's a lot.
The shorter ones, I would read it, especially if it was like, if it was a side camp like mission set, I wouldn't really care too much. But like the actual story arc, I would always read that. But yeah,
yeah, this game is for the ADD.
I'm about it.
Yeah.
Same.
For so you kind of mentioned it earlier, or at least hinted at it. So for MechWarrior 5 Mercs, the money and business aspect of the game makes total sense. Will there be a similar mechanic like game mechanic, forcing us to make difficult decisions in the mech bay?
Yes, it's different, of course. You're not going to earn C-bills, but we found a way. Currencies that might make sense to the clans: honor, merit, things that you'll need to spend to, upgrades to your mechs or, things like that. Some aspects are different though. Like, for example, I don't mind saying just like basic repairs, just like coming back from battle and just having your armor and weapons repaired. I mean, that's not taken care of by the clan. That's not something you need to spend all your currencies on. I mean, you come back, of course, your shit's going to get repaired. But, if you want another mech, or if you want a different Omnipod, or if you want to swap out weapons, you want to customize, you want to, if you want to go deeper, then you've got your currencies.
Makes sense.
And to make some drug deals.
Yeah.
That makes sense for, a full-blown military to, that stuff's just going to be fixed. I'm not an individual company, small-time merc outfit that has to pay for everything. So that makes total sense. So we can't visit my assumption, right? Can't visit a store to buy new mechs. So how will we acquire the bigger, better mechs and weapons?
I mean, the clans, no, you don't. You're not flying to the markets and the black markets, of course. But you can kind of think of the clans as a really well-funded organization. I mean, they have deep pockets and armories. So it's really more, you think about it more as like getting access to those armories. Like, how do you get access to more and more stuff from the overall clan armory? And you're a fresh Civco, so at first you're not getting a lot, but if, the more you prove yourself in battle, the more merit and honor and types of, you earn, they're going to give you access to more. And so I think it's pretty much that simple. It's another way of framing, the unlocking of content rather than through hard, cold cash. It's through, what you do in the battlefield.
Makes sense.
The kiddo might enjoy that a little bit better because he has a really hard time managing his money. He's terrible at it. He was just like, Dad, I'm broke. I can't do anything. I'm like, we'll start a new campaign and do better. Maybe don't run into their face and get shot to shit immediately. Like, you got to think strategically and tactically, which you'll obviously still need to do. But, maybe having the stuff repaired more easily will be less of a blow on his 11-year-old brain. Dave added a question before he took off. So one of the things he would like to see, or has the question on, will heat affect precise shooting in clans? Now we know they're more heat efficient, right? Double heat sinks for the win. We all know computers hate heat. Heat is a big component of the lore. And it would make sense that a computer would have a little bit of a hard time making a precise shot if you're cooking it. So is there any plans or ideas to add heat mechanic affecting things other than just shutting down?
There's no RNG in our games. So I play World of Tanks. Okay, have you guys played World of Tanks?
I played World of Warships.
Okay, it's a random number generator essentially. So like you have a blooming circle, right? And it could go anywhere in that circle. So like, no, we don't have any RNG elements, meaning where you aim is where the shot goes. Same as any of our other past MechWarrior games. We just firmly believe that people get frustrated with RNG. And I can tell you, but from World of Tanks, that people are convinced, absolutely convinced, that behind the scenes, Wargaming is manipulating the RNG.
Jesus.
It's like, oh, well, we're shooting at a Russian tank. Therefore, we're going to manipulate the RNG to miss that tank. So we're not a PvP game, so we really wouldn't suffer from that kind of criticism, I suppose. But no, we're more an action game. We're definitely not like a hardcore simulator game. You don't need to unfold the paper cutout and put it over your keyboard. Like the old days. You probably don't even remember that. You're too young for that. But you'd lay.
I remember the silicone sleeves that you would place over top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no. So there's no random number generated. Like where you aim is where you hit. But I will say we do have actually a very new take on heat shutdown. You might call it even a little bit. I mean, in the world of MechWarrior and BattleTech, I think it's a fairly dramatic change. At least it's something we're testing. There's still definitely a consequence. I mean, you do overheat, you do lose systems. Maybe it's not as pure of a stun lock as it once was. And I'll leave it at that. But I think I view it as a modernization of a classic system that still introduces significant penalties, but maybe removes the worst of the frustration of it. So there's new stuff there.
Interesting.
And so I was just in general wondering how heat would work in this game compared to previous because of the increased heat efficiency of clan tech. So yeah, I mean, as a player, you still need to make those difficult decisions on, do I shoot that large laser or do I not? And I wait 5 seconds to vent a little bit.
Yeah, it's still a thing. It's still a thing. I mean, I know when I'm playtesting in my Timberwolf, I can still overheat because 2 larges plus the medium pulses or medium lasers and a medium pulse and dual LRM 20s aren't cheap. I overheat. It's still a thing, But it's less so. There's no doubt about it. I think some of that's interesting because I think, again, I really feel like I'm really hoping that there's never been a MechWarrior game like this before in so many ways, because we've already talked about the narration and storytelling a bunch of times, so there's that. But think about also, there's never been a MechWarrior game before that sim shipped on all platforms at once. Ever. Mercs did eventually, but we were on PC for a long time, then we went on Xbox, then a little bit later we went on PlayStation. So this one will ship everywhere, all at once, at the same time. Broad-reaching, deep, rich storytelling. And if you've followed along with Mercenaries for the last, how many years has it been? What are we talking about here? 5 years or whatever. The console control system has become more and more and more advanced throughout that period. Now we have what we call internally FPS controls, which is the stupidest name ever. It doesn't make any sense at all. But essentially means that we're at a point now with the controller, we feel it really does control every bit as well as a mouse keyboard. Not for me, because I'm shit with a controller, but people that are good with a controller, it's basically the same. And as you saw in the GDC content with the new radio menu, which honestly at first I ignored it. I just used the F keys because I'm old school, right? F1, F2, F3, 4, all that kind of stuff. I never touch the F keys now. I'm debating whether we should just take them out because the radio menu is 1,000 times better. It's just click, click, click. And I'm you saw me in the video footage. That was me playing and all the B-roll footage and everything. It's attack this guy. After him, a Q attack to this guy. After that guy, Q attack to this guy. And then go into the battle grid, highlight all my guys and say, go over here. Highlight all my guys and say, attack this guy. Highlight one of my guys and say, go use this repair bay. There's a little nugget for your podcast right there. Brand new.
That's very exciting. We only got to see a little bit from the gameplay footage, but the quality of life stuff for it was pretty clear, especially how seamless the satellite view was, that it's much more streamlined. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, so between the controls and the battle grid and the radio menu, sim shipping, cinematic motion capture, storyline, pacing of the combat. And this is truly the most accessible MechWarrior game that's ever been released. And I think if any MechWarrior game in the last 20 years or whatever has had a chance at sort of breaking out into more mainstream, let's say, and kind of reaching out beyond the core fan base, this is the one. So I really hope it does, because not only would that be great for us and the company and the sales and everything else, but it'd be great for MechWarrior. Yeah. That means, great, maybe there is now, MechWarrior 6 with a huge PvP component, or who knows, right? It takes success, to get the freedom and the rope, let's say, to go and push the boundaries a little bit. So, that's what we'll, hope this sets the stage for us. We'll see.
It sounds like it's definitely got a shot, and with I know on Catalyst side of things, they're seeing, some, from what I've heard, they're doing better than they were in the FASA days, which is crazy. So there's definitely BattleTech fans there. So this sounds like it might be a hit.
I think this might even get the crustiest of like BattleTech fans that hate, the modern MechWarrior games, just because of the storyline content, right?
Yeah.
Like, even just because of the narration, just be like, I think they'll eat that up because that's just like cocaine to like BattleTech, like novel readers. It's a story that wasn't told. This is like, you'd think it was like a 3-part novel trilogy, like the Warrior trilogy or something that's been adapted to a video game. Like, it's that much of a storyline. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised.
Exciting.
Someone should just write the novel afterwards, and the novel or novels, and BattleTech sells it or whatever, or Catalyst, I'd say, sells it, because I think it is that. And of course, we're working within the timeline, so it's not like we invented the timeline or anything. It's just that it's like Smoke Jaguar. You'll recognize characters' names from lore, of course, many times throughout the storyline, and just pulls it all together though and tells the perspective of kind of Smoke Jaguar. Because I mean, I don't know, like, is there ever, been like the Smoke Jaguar perspective told? Like, obviously not in video games, but like even in novel.
Yes,
like some of these
later on in the timeline, but most of the stuff from the clan invasion is definitely told from the
Wolf and Jade Falcon, right?
Yeah. As well as when the Smoke Jaguars are kind of getting getting gone after during the later part of the clan invasion into kind of the early Civil War. It's all like oh man, I just completely lost my train of thought.
That's Twilight of the Clans, isn't it?
Yes. Where they're going after they're going all the way to Huntress to chase down. You've got the Second Star League, and
when they find the Exodus Road and they get out there.
Exactly, but that's
with,
that's all
Paul
Inner Sphere
Moon.
side, right?
Yeah,
You're not getting the Smoke Jaguar perspective. You get it in hindsight in Forever Faithful. Yes. But really that's only on Huntress if memory serves me. So yeah, this will be from the Smoke Jaguar the Smoke Jaguar perspective will be completely fresh if that's the case.
Obviously you'll get to go to Huntress. You already saw that in GDC trailer. Stalker base. Very cool.
But that rounds out the questions I had, Brent.
I do. So all my questions are kind of lore focused, which probably isn't a surprise coming from the book podcast. But I pulled most of it from the trailer, so hopefully we'll be able to get some answers. And they might be almost a little. They might be maybe a little too detailed. Where I might. I'm not trying to stump you. So if you're if there's something I say where you're like, who's that? Feel free. I'll explain it. But first off, one of my co-hosts of Mechs and Men absolutely loved Mech Commander. One of the few games we didn't mention earlier. And it's how he got BattleTech, and he eagerly requested that I ask, will our star in game help in the initial invasion of Port Arthur, which is where that game. It's the planet that is heavily featured in Mech Commander.
I think the answer is no. That'd be a better question for Chris Lowry, of course, but as the campaign director, I'm quite familiar with the planets that we do visit. I don't know if it was said in the GDC trailer, but that was the planet of Santander. Maybe, I'm not sure if that's news or not. That desert planet where you fight, the Pirate King, Velasek. Yes. So that was clear in the video. So that's Santander.
That's actually a later question I had. Was that who that was?
Yes, that was Velasek. Yeah, but no, I know the planets we go to, and I don't believe the one you mentioned. I don't think so.
So I'm gonna skip over the one about Santander and Santander's world and Velasek, but and go
you,
to
you just skip it. I can give more details, maybe. I don't know. It's up to you.
Oh yeah, go for it.
I guess that's pretty much it, right? I suppose. The Pirate King Santander. I mean, that's or Velasek. Sorry, Helmar Velasek. There's actually. I'll just say the whole first act. It's not just one mission. There's a whole first act on Santander, so there's a good amount on the periphery there.
Right.
First.
So the next
You guys said
question.
periphery. I know a lot of things.
Heck yeah. You were
One of us. One of us.
Sakan Sarah Weaver is featured in the recent gameplay video. This has some members of the BattleTech community speculating that we will be playing maybe as the Shroud Keshik of Beta Galaxy, which she commands directly. However, I also noticed that the mechs in the video are clearly painted in Delta Galaxy color schemes. If you're willing, could you provide more information about the unit our clan star will belong to?
Wow. I understand the question, I think, but I don't think I can answer, not because I don't want to disclose, but because I don't think I know. I think Chris Lowry 100... Oh, I know for a fact he knows. I will say that, Sarah Weaver is a big part of the game. And as Chris has described, I think you heard describing, by the time the game starts, she's a pretty big deal, I guess, as a Sakan, as a major part in the game. But as far, I guess the only aspect of your little investigation that I don't think necessarily is like a true hint, I guess is the way I'd put it, is Gotcha. The patterns on the mechs, because what we're finding, just to pour a little bit of cold water here, maybe this is a bit of a buzzkill, but it's like the stock Smoke Jaguar pattern is quite drab. So we were finding for GDC, it's like, does this thing even have a fucking texture on it? You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, I can see the paw prints a little bit. So yeah, the guys dug kind of deep, and there's kind of multiple patterns that are used by Smoke Jaguar in general, and frankly, we're kind of looking for patterns that looked good, in footage or in the mech bay and just on the videos. And when you're thinking about IGN posting your trailer, you want it to look good, even if it's like, hey, that's the Beta Galaxy or whatever. So I don't really know for sure exactly, which unit you're a part of as you put it in that regard. I'm pretty sure Chris would know. Well, I know he would. But yeah, that's kind of the story of the patterns. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, we might have evolved slightly even since the GDC footage on that concept. So yeah, there you go. I guess that's the best answer I can provide on that question.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. And, maybe people that aren't as lore focused, they're probably going to want to change the color of their mechs and stuff. It makes sense for gameplay purposes for that to be a feature. So I don't really consider it a buzzkill. It makes sense. So my last question here, the PC Gamer article from way back, I think a year ago now. Maybe I can't remember. Mentions impressive architecture being developed for the planet of Luthien. I infer that the story will take us at least up to the events, maybe, of the Battle of Luthien that takes place on January 4th, 3052. The question then remains, will we see the Battle of Tukayed in this game, or perhaps in a subsequent expansion?
Same answer as before about subsequent expansions. I don't know for sure what we'll see. But you're correct. You will see Luthien.
Cool.
It is. It's very cool, in fact.
That's I can only imagine the bespoke architecture, or the bespoke architecture that's going to go into that. It's probably quite breathtaking.
Yeah, it's incredible. Actually, it's some of the last content to come online before the game ships for understandable reasons, because it's all new. I mean, we were able to lean on Mercenaries content to a modest degree for this game, for some of the buildings and destructibles and things, but primarily all new. A lot of new content, almost all new content, and certainly for somewhere like Luthien, I think that was a focus early on. It's like, okay, this has to look special, has to look like, have this Japanese influence and look like, a totally different thing. It can't be like the same office towers, from Mercs, this kind of thing. So, it's starting to really take shape. So I think that'll be special. So the Luthien missions in particular are very special because they are, let's just say, post decision point, and the player might need to play through them. Well, on a single playthrough, you won't get to play through all the missions. Let's just say. So let's just say I just said that like that's not a lot. Like that's a lot. I just said a lot. So like, yeah. So there you go.
That's awesome.
I don't think I had it in my original bullet points, but in like the little teaser videos, I caught a glimpse of like a top-down like tack map. We're able to control your star mates from like that map level, that map screen tack map.
Yeah, we call that the battle grid. Yeah.
Yep. I play MechWarrior Online.
Yeah, well, you're right. It's a shared term, but it's a very different screen than past battle grids. Yeah.
I'm gonna say that alone had me super excited. I mean, one of my favorite things growing up was, that kind of like top-down view, like real-time strategy games. So you kind of get a mix of that first-person or third-person shooter wherever you've got your camera set, but you can also looks like get a little bit of a taste of an RTS-ish at the same time.
A little bit. We were
I just thought it was super cool.
Yeah, like I've been really careful about that screen though, because let's just say like one of the mantras I told the team, I was like, look, I think this is a really cool screen. I think it's going to add a whole new dimension to the game. However, I don't want to create just like a bad RTS. So like,
you don't want somebody to spend the entire game on that.
Yeah, there's limitations. I wouldn't let you just like, hey, let's send guys to the end of the map and skip all the story and all the triggers and all the volumes and all the. No, there's within a vicinity of the Star Commander. You can give full commands like go here, attack this guy, few attacks. Use this repair bay. Like there's a lot, and it's awesome. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we want the player to eventually come out of that mode, proceed with their star, and experience the storyline that we've created for them.
Even awesome just from a sense of giving, your AI teammates commands, that alone made me super happy, because so many times I'd be playing MechWarrior 5 and I've got to point the crosshair at the top of the hill, but I'm like, I want you to go like 50 meters past the crest of the hill, but I can't see it, so I can't tell you to go there. So then I have to get up there, and now we're deep in, engagement, and it could be frustrating at times. So having that map and the ability to do that, super excited about it.
Yeah, it's a cool screen. I think you'll like it.
It sounds like it. I do have one last question that I just thought of. Sorry, Mike, but
no, you're all good.
And I just thought of this on the spot. I'm not trying to be a curveball. I don't think it will be. What's the music? You said that this is kind of the predecessor spiritually to MechWarrior 2. What kind of music are we looking at for this?
Yeah, I think that's I think it'd be somewhat obvious in the sense. What I'll say is, so Sean Colton, if you guys know the name, he's our music composer, and you're really proud of him. What he did on Mercenaries, of course. Like, I mean, Sean's been working with us for like, I don't know, 12 plus years or something like that. Maybe, I don't know. Sorry, Sean, if I got that way wrong, but like a long time. And he did all the music for Mercenaries. And he took the mandate, like to me, the mandate when I went to him, even though MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries was the spiritual successor to MechWarrior 1, as I told you, the musical inspiration was more like Mech 4 Mercs, right? Yeah. Mech 4 Mercs was a very heavy metal rock sort of soundtrack, and that's what I wanted for my Mercenaries game. And I think he crushed it. I mean, how many videos are out there on YouTube of dudes like, shredding the Merc soundtrack, and just awesome. I was so cool to see. I love that. So he killed that. And the direction given to him, of course, as you would imagine, is very different. The direction is like, bro, have you even heard the Mech 2 soundtrack? Like, So I would say, yeah, that's the inspiration. Mech 2 soundtrack. Though don't expect the exact same sort of stuff, because I think as unbelievable as it was for us at the time, it's fairly simplistic MIDI style music now. So like expect a more complex version of it, but certainly, the direction is much more like electronic, industrial. I don't know. I'm not a huge music guy, but you get it. You know what I'm saying?
Like kind of tribal. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's the inspiration, and so he's crushing it again. So I haven't even heard all the music yet. It's coming online all the time. Like he's got a bunch of it. I've heard some of it, and it sounds awesome. And there's like I probably haven't even heard like 80% of it at this point. He's got a big team now. Like a big team. He's probably got about 5 guys in his audio team now. Like he does all the music still. He owns the music 100%. But he's got guys up because we have so much with this cinematic content, as you can tell. He's like trailers, cutscenes, the briefings, all the mission dialogue, the music. So he's got a bigger team now, but I think he still owns the music 100%. So I'm rooting for him, and I think he's going to crush it. So that's the inspiration, though. I mean, I think that was kind of obvious, but it's like we're not above. Even if we say MechWarrior 2 is like the inspiration, like, I mean, 29 years, like it's a totally different interpretation. It's using that as inspiration. And that goes for every other aspect too. Like, let's say, Bitch and Betty. We're going to have a bit of a different take on Bitch and Betty than we had in Mercenaries. But you can imagine what our inspiration is. Like MechWarrior 2, Bitch and Betty is just a little different, right?
Yeah.
A little... I don't know how else to say, but classic version. And people have their mods for it. So we're not just going to take the original lines, of course, and throw them into MechWarrior 5 clans. We're doing all new recordings, 100%. But let's just say more in the style of MechWarrior 2 for Bitch and Betty 2. So that's, we're trying to do right by all that. I mean, you've seen that, everything from the beginning of the original teaser, essentially flashing into a MechWarrior 2 box art, image.
Yes.
The title screen of clans, like it's throughout. It's throughout everything, and you can look at it like inspiration, but it's of course, again, 29 years and like 29 years of technology. It's like there's no copying. Even if you wanted to just flat out copy, you couldn't. You have to just take inspiration and go from there.
Very exciting stuff.
Well, that kind of rounds out the questions we have. I can't think of anything else. I'm super excited. I
was already very excited. I am much more excited after this conversation.
I think I've seen on a couple Discords some speculation on if clans would come out this year, if it would come out next year. Like you said in the beginning, 24 is still the anticipated ship date. So, hell yes. But yeah, that kind of rounds out our main medal, unless you've got any other nuggets you want to drop,
No. I mean, if you guys shut down, the recording, maybe I can share a few more nuggets, but that's it for the official.
We can do that shortly. All right, well, that will bring us to the drink of the month. Ben's not here to do it, so I'm going to forego the normal intro. And I can't speak to how it tastes or anything. It's just Ben gave me the drink of the month. So this month's drink of the month, in honor of MechWarrior 5 clans, it's going to be the Fusionaire, which is straight grain alcohol cut with moonshine. So
engine cleaner.
Engine cleaner. It's going to taste terrible. It's going to burn all the way. Drink water. In conjunction with, but that'll be this month's drink of the month, which will then just roll us into shoutouts, because I don't really have anything for upcoming action or return and report as it is. So let's start with Russ. Shoutouts.
Oh wow, geez, I don't have any shoutouts. Okay, I'll just say now's the time to get caught up if you're not on, your MechWarrior stuff. If for whatever reason you're holding out on MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries because it wasn't like your storytelling game, I get it, as you've heard in this, this podcast. But I think you'd be surprised with the 6 DLCs that are out there. Just the amount of like content is absolutely unreal. So like, it must be one of the biggest, bargains in gaming right now. You get the base game for $29.99, and then all the DLCs are like about $15 now. and you're talking hundreds and hundreds of hours of gameplay, I absolutely recommend that you grind all that before you get into the clans. Just not because it's related story-wise, whatever, it's going to be a primer story-wise, but just, you got to get your head on right for clans. You got to be in the mindset. That's it, I guess. I'm just stoked that, right now there's a great, we have 2 MechWarrior products on Steam right now, MechWarrior Online and MechWarrior 5 clans, and pretty soon we're going to have, Mercs, and we're going to have a third one, Clan. So we'll have 3 mercenary products, MechWarrior products, all active at the same time. So, I don't know, I guess that's my shout out.
All right, moving on over to Brent.
Well, first off, I've got to shout out Charles Gideon, because he's awesome. I think he knows it by now. And, all of our other brother and sister podcasts. Man, I really don't... I do, actually. And also the CGL team. I got to hang out with them a little bit at Adepticon, and I just had a blast. And they're doing great work to keep this property alive. And last but not least, I guess my co-host in our podcast. Can I plug it here? Are you cool with that?
Yeah.
We are of Mechs and Men. We're a BattleTech podcast. You can find us anywhere that podcasts are found, and you can also just come hang out with us in the Valhalla Club. Along with all the other BattleTech podcasts that hang out here.
All right. For my shout-outs, first and foremost, Russ, thanks for joining us. I'm happy we were able to finally get you on the show. Thanks for talking about the game, keeping it alive, bringing us awesome new stuff. Like I said, we're super stoked and excited. And then next will just be our Discord community. Everyone's awesome, super friendly, always willing to help out, whether that's for Tabletop Simulator mods that Break Time's working on, talking about MechWarrior Online, MechWarrior 5, any other games that we're playing, the Tabletop, Alpha Strike Classic. Everyone's super nice, super helpful, friendly, but also the right amount of competitive. But yeah, we've got a great Discord community. I love all you guys. It's great being able to hang out with the homies regularly, hop in the voice chat, and then drop and slag some armor in MechWarrior Online. Friends make all games better, and I'm glad you're all my friends. But that rounds out shout-outs. Last will be a quick Patreon plug. We're making some changes to the Patreon. It used to be just a $5 tier to anyone wanting to help out. We've now got a $3 and a $7 tier. We're still deving out what kind of perks will be there, this, that, and the other. But for anyone that's already a patron, super appreciate it. It helps keeps the light on. But yeah, keep an eye out for future Patreon updates. And that'll bring us to last call. Thanks for hanging out, everybody.
It's been a blast. He thanked you, but also on behalf of thank you for coming and hanging out. It's been a blast talking to you.
Thanks, guys. Really great to meet you guys. Nice to be introduced to another, really cool community, right? I've been, blessed to be a part of this community for a really long time, but also, in a difficult position where sometimes I am the savior and sometimes I'm the devil of, the situation. But I hope that some of these, I think over the years, I've, sort of become more relaxed, with the community. Maybe that comes with certain levels of success versus stress or whatever it was at certain times. But, I think all in all, I think the community has been really great. And I think hopefully at least from some of these interviews, people would at least get the impression that no matter how it seemed, because we didn't communicate enough or something, we always had, the best interests of the game and the franchise and the community at heart. Sometimes we succeeded, sometimes we didn't, but we always we always had that as a goal. I mean, it was never any, sort of side agendas or anything like that, because success only comes with success, meaning pushing, in the right direction. And we always wanted to push in the same direction. Just lots of I think lots of hard work. You know, I mean, the early days, we jumped onto a franchise that hadn't had a game in 10 years. You know, a lot of pent up demand and frustration and expectation, and had to push through a lot of those, I think, feelings for a lot of years. You know, whether it was MWO to Mercs to all the DLCs, and now we're moving on to clans. And I just think I'm grateful for being able to, I hope at least, you know, bring certain things to life for people. You know, like maybe there's somebody that just wanted to see the Draconis Combined, you know, DLC, and they got it with Dragon's Gambit or the Kestrel Lancers, or I mean, we're, as you can see with our DLCs and stuff, we're trying to, like, you know, touch everyone's heart in some way with you know, some aspect of the community. And so obviously the clans is, again, it's kind of shocking that it went 29 years. You'd think we would have been like trying to milk that avenue like day one. But no, here we are. And the stage has been set, I think, for this clan game. So I really hope it, you know, meets expectations for everybody. But thanks again for having me on.
Absolutely. And like I said, thanks for joining us. It's not every day a small-time podcast crew can try and get a CEO of a game corporation on as a guest. So that's just, people ask me like, how'd you do it? And I was like, I just went to PGI's website, went to the bottom where it said contact us.
It was me. I asked him how he did it.
Yeah, I was like, I just asked, and you don't know if you don't ask. So yeah, I was blown away when I got a response. I was like, holy shit, is this gonna happen? But yeah, super thankful that you joined us. It's been a great chat. Definitely way longer than I anticipated. So sorry if we ate a lot of your time. But yeah, that should round out the episode. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you next time. Join us for game nights. I know lately it has been Helldivers. That's been the game. But we've still been playing some MechWarrior Online, and we're starting to, you know, we've hit that point. We're starting to hit a little bit of burnout on that one too. So we're starting to come back into MechWarrior Online. Me and Brent dropped, what was it, 2 days ago?
Yeah.
And slagged some armor for a few hours. So join us on Discord. Link is in the description. And yeah, come hang out. Let's drop. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us today in the Valhalla Club. If you'd like to hang out with us and many other BattleTech podcasters, then be sure to join our Discord. Link is in the description. Special thanks to our sponsor, Ares Games and Miniatures. Ares is the premier online retailer for all your BattleTech needs. If you would like to support the show, you can find us at patreon.com/the Valhalla Club. If you have any comments, please feel free to send an email to thevalhallaclub@outlook.com. Until next time, Mech fans.
I also think he gave us a bit of a hint there. I think he's saying that there's going to be some like, you know, like player choice, some
yeah, sounds like we might have to kill Rihanna.
Yeah. We really kicked over the beehive commander.
Still not as bad as Darius from freaking BattleTech.
That's her favorite line. That's her favorite line. Oh my god.